My son asked to borrow my truck at 5:17 on a Thursday afternoon. For 1 hour, Dad. Those were his exact words. Daniel was standing in my driveway, holding the keys to his own SUV in one hand and looking toward my F-150 like there was something urgent about it. What happened to yours? Nothing. Then why do you need mine? I found a workbench for the garage. Guy in Farragut wants it gone tonight. It won't fit in the Explorer. That made sense. Daniel had been rearranging his garage for months. Every time I visited, something that belonged against a wall was sitting in the middle of the floor because, according to him, he was still figuring out the layout. His mother called it inherited behavior. I called it temporary storage. Maggie called both of us liars. We're in Farragut, near Campbell Station. Straps are behind the back seat. I know. And don't slide it across the bed. He looked at me. I'm 42. You can scratch a truck at 42. He smiled. 1 hour. Then he pulled out of the driveway. My name is Thomas Avery. Most people call me Tom. I was 70 that spring, retired from a commercial electrical contracting business I had run outside Knoxville for 32 years. I sold the company to two of my foremen when I was 66. The truck stayed with me. So did one small habit from the business. A GPS unit plugged beneath the dashboard. Years earlier, after somebody stole tools out of two service vans in the same month, I had put trackers in every company vehicle. The system recorded ignition times, routes, stops, and location history. When I sold the business, I canceled the fleet account except for my truck. Mostly because the tracker cost me less than $10 a month and had already helped me find the truck once when a repair shop left it in the wrong overflow lot. I did not use it to monitor my family. That distinction became important later. At 6:20, Daniel was not back. At 6:45, he texted, "Seller's running late. I'll be a while." I replied, "How long is a while?" He sent, "Not sure. Don't wait on me." Maggie was making chicken and rice. She looked at my phone. "What happened to 1 hour? Apparently time moves differently in Farragut. You want me to save him dinner? He's 42. That wasn't my question. Yes. At 7:30, I was not worried. At 8:15, I was irritated. At 9:12, Maggie asked whether I thought something had happened. I'd have heard. How? He has a phone. So did Amelia Earhart. That comparison has weaknesses. She put his plate in the refrigerator. At 9:38, I called Daniel, straight to voicemail. I waited 3 minutes and called again. Voicemail, then a text came through. "I'm fine, helping somebody with something, sorry. We'll explain later." That was the first sentence that bothered me, not because it was secretive. Adults are allowed secrets. Because Daniel had started with a workbench. Now the workbench had disappeared from the explanation entirely. I texted, "Do you still have my truck?" He answered almost immediately, "Yes, everything's fine." Maggie was watching television. I went into my office. Not because I thought my son was committing a crime with my Ford, because I wanted to know whether the truck was sitting broken down somewhere while he told me not to worry. I opened the tracking app. The truck was stationary. Leawood Drive, West Knoxville. Not Farragut. I enlarged the map. The location marker sat in a small professional complex near Kingston Pike. I knew the area. Dentist, insurance agency, accounting office, a couple of law firms. The truck had arrived at 6:04 p.m. It had not moved since. I checked the address, 1847 Leawood Drive. Then I searched the building directory. Suite 240 belonged to Keene, Marlowe, and Finch, attorneys at law. Underneath were the practice areas, family law, divorce, custody, marital property, civil litigation, mediation. I stared at the screen. My first thought was Daniel and Claire, his wife. They had been married 19 years. I had seen them 6 days earlier at our house for Sunday lunch. Claire had brought peach pie. Daniel complained that she bought peaches too early. She told him he had eaten 3 slices and therefore forfeited his right to criticize the fruit. They looked married. Not movie married. Real married. Comfortable enough to argue about peaches in front of everybody. Their daughter Emma had sat on our back porch doing homework and pretending not to listen. There had been no announcement, no obvious crisis, no reason I knew for my son to spend nearly 4 hours outside a family law office. I checked the tracker again. Same location. Then the old contractor and me took over. Not suspicion. Sequence. Daniel left my house at 5:22, drove west, stopped 12 minutes at a gas station, arrived at Leawood Drive at 6:04. No trip to Campbell Station, no stop near Farragut, no furniture seller. He had borrowed my truck for a reason that never happened. I went back to the living room. Maggie looked at me. What? He's at a lawyer's office. She muted the television. What lawyer? Family law. That got her attention. Daniel? Yes. Are you sure? The truck is. She thought for a moment. Maybe somebody there has the workbench. Since 6? Oh. And he said he's helping somebody. That could be true. Yes. I sat down. Maggie watched me. You're building a theory. I'm specifically not building a theory. That's the face you make before you build one. I ignored that. At 10:13, I checked again. Same location. At 11:06, same. At 11:37, I sent one text. Daniel, it's almost midnight. Bring the truck home or call me. He called 30 seconds later. Dad, where are you? There was a pause. West Knoxville. I gathered. Another pause. How? My truck has GPS. He said nothing. I had forgotten Daniel knew about the old tracker. Apparently, he had forgotten too. Are you all right? Yes. Is somebody hurt? No. Are you in trouble? No. Then why have you been outside a lawyer's office for 5.5 hours? The silence on the line changed. Not surprise anymore. Something heavier. You looked it up. You borrowed my truck for 1 hour. I know. What happened to the workbench? It fell through. At 6? Yes. And then? A friend needed me. What friend? He hesitated. Ryan. I knew Ryan Keller. Daniel had worked with him nearly 10 years. What does Ryan need? Legal help. Then why does he need your truck? He doesn't. Why does he need you until midnight? Daniel exhaled. Dad, please. That word slowed me down. My son did not usually say please when he was irritated. He got more precise, more like me. I'm not asking you to explain somebody else's private business, I said. Good. I'm asking when my truck is coming home. I'm leaving now. He did. The tracker showed ignition at 11:52. At 12:16, headlights came up my driveway. Daniel parked beside his Explorer. Empty truck bed, no workbench. He came inside carrying my keys. Maggie had gone to bed but not asleep. I knew because the hallway light was still on. Daniel put the keys on the counter. Sorry. You eat? He looked surprised. No. Your mother saved you chicken. I should go. You should probably eat first. That irritated him more than anger would have. He opened the refrigerator. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. He stood at the kitchen counter eating cold chicken because he said heating it would take too long. Finally, I asked, Ryan okay? Daniel stopped chewing. Yes. Divorce? Something like that. Something like that. What does that mean? It means it isn't my story. Fair answer. Almost. Why borrow my truck? He looked at me. For the workbench. The workbench that never existed? His face changed. Not much. Enough. I had spent 32 years listening to electricians explain why a job took 9 hours instead of 6. People usually reveal the bad part when they defend the detail you did not accuse them of. I didn't say it never existed, Daniel said. You didn't go there. I changed plans. Before or after leaving my driveway? He put down the fork. Dad. Simple question. After. Then why drive straight to Leawood? He said nothing. That was my answer. The workbench had been an excuse before he ever asked for the keys. I looked at him. Does Claire know where you were? His eyes shifted. Only once. But I saw it. No. Does she think you were here? Another pause. Why would she think that? Not an answer. I asked again. Does Claire think you were with me? Daniel pushed the plate away. I told her I was helping you. I leaned back. So there it was. One lie pointed in both directions. To me, workbench. To his wife. Dad needs help. The only true part was the truck. Why? I can't talk about this tonight. Can't or won't. Both. He picked up his keys. I let him get almost to the door. Then I asked, why didn't you take your own car? His hand stopped on the knob. That question frightened him more than the lawyer did. I knew it before he turned around. Daniel? He looked tired suddenly. Not the ordinary kind. The kind that sits behind someone's face for weeks before anybody notices. Claire can see where the Explorer is. I said nothing. Utter the vehicle app, he continued. It's under both our names. You didn't want your wife knowing you went to a lawyer. No. So you borrowed my truck. Yes, for 1 hour. I thought it would be. But you stayed until midnight. He looked toward the dark hallway, then back at me. The meeting ended at 8. That surprised me. The truck didn't move until 11:52. I know. What were you doing for 4 hours? He looked down. Sitting in it. That was not the answer I expected. Why? His eyes filled. He wiped them quickly, embarrassed by the fact more than the tears. Then he said, because once I drove home, I had to decide whether I was still going to be married when I got there. For the first time that night, I stopped asking questions. Daniel left 5 minutes later. His Explorer backed out of my driveway. I watched until the taillights disappeared. Then I went back to my office and opened the GPS history one more time. 6:04. Truck parked at the lawyer's office. 8:15. No movement. 9:30. 10:40. 11:52. He had not spent 6 hours with a lawyer. He had spent a little over 2 hours inside and nearly 4 hours alone in my truck afterward. That difference mattered. I did not yet know what Daniel had learned in that office. I did not know whether Claire had done something, whether he had, or whether 19 years of marriage had simply reached a place neither of them knew how to cross. But I knew one thing. My son had not borrowed my truck because he needed cargo space. He borrowed it because it was the one vehicle his wife could not follow. And whatever he was hiding from her had frightened him enough to sit in a dark parking lot until midnight, rather than drive home and face it. That difference mattered enough that I did something I usually try not to do after midnight. I stayed awake and thought about somebody else's marriage. Maggie came into the kitchen around 1. She had put on the blue robe Daniel bought her 3 Christmases earlier and was carrying the glass of water she always forgot to drink before bed. He gone? Yes. She looked at the plate on the counter. Did he eat? Most of it. That wasn't what I meant. I knew. I told her what Daniel had said in the doorway, about Claire being able to see the Explorer through their shared vehicle account, about deliberately taking my truck so she could not see where he went, about the meeting ending around 8 and Daniel sitting alone in the parking lot until nearly midnight. Maggie pulled out a chair. Did he say he's divorcing her? No. Did he say she wants a divorce? No. Then we don't know anything. Correct. You sound disappointed. I'm tired. You hate not knowing. That too. She reached across the table and covered my hand. Tom, this is their marriage. I know. It had been their marriage for 19 years. Daniel met Claire when he was 22. He had just finished college and was working an entry-level sales job for a building supply company in Knoxville. Claire was 21 and finishing a degree in communications at the University of Tennessee. They met at a birthday dinner for somebody neither one of them remained friends with. Daniel later told me he noticed Claire because she sent a steak back twice and remained perfectly polite both times. Claire said she noticed Daniel because he ate the first steak after the restaurant replaced it. He looked hungry, she told us. That was Claire. She could be direct without making people feel pushed. She and Maggie became close early. Not imitation mother and daughter close. Real close. The kind where they sometimes irritated each other and did not require Daniel or me to interpret it. Claire sat with Maggie through both of her cataract surgeries. Maggie helped Claire paint Emma's nursery when Claire was 7 months pregnant. When I sold Avery Commercial Electric, Claire was the one who brought folding chairs to the retirement party because she knew I would remember extension cords, food, insurance certificates, and 40 other details while forgetting that 60 people needed somewhere to sit. Emma came along 3 years after the wedding. She was 16 now, smart, dry sense of humor. More interested in environmental science than anything that paid quickly, which worried Daniel and amused me. Daniel had become regional sales manager at the same building supply company where he started. Ryan Keller ran commercial accounts. They had worked beside each other for nearly 10 years. From the outside, Daniel and Claire had one of those marriages that seemed ordinary enough to trust. Mortgage, 2 cars, Sunday dinners twice a month, arguments about Emma's screen time, a yearly beach trip if nobody's work schedule ruined it. That did not mean they were happy every minute. It meant I had never been given a reason to think one of them needed a lawyer. At 70, I had learned that adults can hide entire rooms inside ordinary houses. Still, Daniel was my son. That created my problem. My instinct was to call him. My better judgment said wait. Maggie knew both instincts. Tomorrow, she said. What tomorrow? If he wants to tell us, he will. And if he doesn't, then he's 42. She stood. Try sleeping. I did not. At 9:20 the next morning, Daniel texted, "Can I come by?" He arrived 20 minutes later carrying coffee for all three of us. Peace offering, or delay tactic. With Daniel, sometimes both. He sat at the kitchen table and stared at his cup. Maggie did not rescue him. Neither did I. Finally, he said, "Claire and I have had problems for a few months." "What kind?" Maggie asked. "Trust. Yours or hers?" "Mine." He rubbed both hands over his face. "I found money missing." That was not the direction I expected. "How much?" "17,300. From where?" "Our savings." "Stolen?" "No." "Then not missing." Daniel gave me a look. "You know what I mean?" "I'm trying to know exactly what you mean." He pulled out his phone. "Claire transferred it." "To who?" "A man named Lucas Bennett." Maggie looked at me. I asked, "Over what period?" "About 9 months." "One transfer?" 11. "Same amounts?" "No." Daniel opened a screenshot. I did not reach for his phone. He pushed it toward me. The transfers ranged from $400 to $2,800. One in November, 2 in December, nothing in January. Then several through the spring and summer. "What kind of transfer?" "Electronic, straight from our joint savings." "Did she hide the statements?" "No." That caught me. "You could see them?" "If I looked." "But you didn't." "I handle the mortgage and insurance. Claire does most of the day-to-day banking." "How'd you find them?" "We're refinancing the house." "For what?" "Garage edition." That explained the workbench story, at least where he got the idea. "The lender asked for 2 months of statements. I noticed one transfer and went back." Maggie asked, "Who is Lucas Bennett?" Daniel stared at his coffee. "I don't know." "What does Claire say?" His mouth tightened. "That he's family." I waited. "Is he?" "She won't explain." "Those are different questions." "Dad?" "Does she have a relative named Lucas?" "Not one I've ever met." Claire's father had died 5 years earlier. Her mother, Joyce Mercer, died the following winter after a short illness. Claire had one younger brother, Eric, who lived outside Columbus with his wife and 2 boys. At least that was the family we knew. Daniel continued. "I asked Claire Tuesday night. She went completely white when I said the name. 'What did you ask?' 'Who he was.' And she said, at first, nothing. Then she said, 'He's family. I need you to trust me until I can explain.'" Maggie frowned. "Until when?" "Apparently whenever she decides." "What did you say?" "That $17,000 buys me a little more than trust me." "Reasonable." "What happened?" "She cried. And she said the money wasn't what I thought." "What did you think?" Daniel looked at me. "I didn't know yet." That word mattered. Yet. "So you checked?" "Yes." "What?" "His name." "Online?" "Yes." "And?" 24, lives in Johnson City." Maggie glanced at me again. "Claire had grown up near Kingsport, not far," Daniel continued. "He works for an equipment rental place. No criminal record I could find. Nothing dramatic. Married? No idea." "Did you contact him?" "No." "Good." Daniel leaned back. "Then I started looking at Claire's credit card." Maggie's expression changed. "You have access?" "It's joint." That made it different from secretly breaking into a private account, still uncomfortable. "What did you find?" "Restaurants. People eat. Johnson City." I said nothing. 3 times in 7 months. 1 hotel. Maggie looked toward him. "Hotel room?" "Charge." "Could have been a meeting room." "Could have been anything." Daniel sounded angry now. Not loud. Anger that had been stored too neatly. I asked her if she was seeing someone. "What did she say?" "No." "Do you believe her?" He did not answer. That was why he had gone to the lawyer. Not because he had decided on divorce. Because he no longer knew which facts belonged to his marriage. "What did the attorney tell you?" Maggie asked. "That I should slow down." I almost smiled. "Worth the hourly rate." Daniel ignored me. "She said not to threaten divorce, just to force an explanation. She told me to copy account statements, understand our debts, and not move money around out of panic." Sensible. She also explained what separation would look like if it came to that. House, accounts, Emma. There it was. Emma. The part that turned a marriage problem into something Daniel could not keep emotionally contained. "She's 16, he said. "If Claire and I blow this up, Emma lives inside whatever happens." Maggie reached toward him. He let her take his hand. I looked again at the transfers. One detail had begun bothering me. What are these notes? Daniel looked. Transfer memos. 3 had none. One said rent, another said tires. 2 said school. A transfer for $2,800 in May said spring balance. I pointed. If Claire were paying a boyfriend $17,000 behind your back, why label some of the payments like she was paying his bills? Daniel stared at me. I don't know. And why run it through an account you can access? She probably didn't think I'd look. Possible. He did not like the word. I continued. Did you ask her what school meant? No. Why? Because I was a little distracted by the $17,000 going to a man she never mentioned. Fair. I gave the phone back. Then, your affair theory may be right. Maggie looked at me. Daniel did too. I'm not saying it is. Sounded like you were. I'm saying you have evidence she has been secretly sending money to a younger man and meeting him. That deserves an explanation. He nodded. But some of the evidence does not behave like an affair. What does affair evidence behave like, Dad? No idea. Never had one. Maggie said. Excellent answer. Daniel almost smiled. I continued. Those memos look like somebody covering expenses. That makes it better? No. $17,000 is still $17,000. Yes. And she still lied. Yes. Then what are you saying? That you're asking the wrong question. He stared at me. The first question isn't whether Claire is sleeping with Lucas Bennett. What is it? Why does she believe he's family? Daniel sat back. She could just be saying that. She could. But you think she isn't. I think people usually choose lies that end a conversation. He's family creates more questions. That silenced him. Maggie asked, Does Claire know you saw a lawyer? No. You planning to tell her? Yes. When? Tonight. Good. Daniel looked at me. I don't want you calling her. I wasn't planning to. Or looking up Lucas. I raised an eyebrow. Daniel, I know you. You think retirement turned me into a private investigator? I think retirement gave you time. Maggie laughed. He was not wrong. I won't contact anyone, I said. Thank you. But if Claire calls me directly, I'm not lying for you. I'm not asking you to. That was important. He stayed another half hour, mostly talking with Maggie. Not about money, about Emma. He was worried she had noticed the tension. Maggie said 16-year-olds notice when a parent changes the way he closes a cabinet. Daniel said that was ridiculous. I told him she was understating it. He left before lunch. At 2:15, Emma came through our back door without knocking. She had done that since she was tall enough to reach the handle. Grandma? Laundry room? Maggie called. Emma walked into the kitchen carrying a canvas tote. Then she saw me sitting at the table with Daniel's forgotten coffee cup. Dad was here? Earlier. Her expression changed. Barely. But I had spent 16 years watching that face. What? Nothing. That was something. She put the tote on a chair. Is he okay? He's worried about a few things. Emma looked toward the laundry room, then lowered her voice. Did Mom tell him? I did not answer. Tell him what? She realized her mistake immediately. Nothing. Emma. She looked at me. I kept my voice calm. I'm not going to make you explain your parents' marriage. Her shoulders relaxed slightly. Then I asked, who is Lucas Bennett? Every bit of color left her face. Not confusion, recognition. She looked toward the hallway again. Grandpa, you know him? She swallowed. Yes. Does your father know you know him? Her eyes filled. No. That was the first contradiction I could not fit into Daniel's theory. Claire was secretly sending money to a 24-year-old man. She was meeting him without telling her husband. But she had not hidden Lucas Bennett from everyone. She had told her 16-year-old daughter. And whatever Lucas was to Claire, Emma had been carrying the secret inside her parents' house long enough to be afraid of what would happen when her father finally learned her mother was not the only one who had lied to him. I did not ask Emma to explain immediately. At 16, being caught in an adult secret can make every question sound like an accusation. She stood beside the kitchen table, with one hand gripping the strap of her canvas tote. Did Mom tell you about Lucas? No. Dad? Your father knows the name. He doesn't know what it means. Her eyes dropped. That answered something. How long have you known him? Since April? Known about him or met him? Both. Where? Johnson City. I kept my voice even. With your mother? Yes. How many times? Twice. I thought of Daniel's credit card charges. 3 restaurant visits, 1 hotel, 11 transfers. Whatever Claire was doing had a pattern. Did Lucas ever come to your house? No. Does he know your father? Emma shook her head. Has he met him? No. Does he want to? Her expression changed. I don't know. That sounded true. I pulled out a chair. You want to sit? She did. Maggie came in from the laundry room carrying a basket, saw Emma's face, and put the basket down without asking why. What happened? Emma looked at me. I let her decide. Grandpa knows about Lucas. Maggie sat beside her. Who's Lucas? Emma closed her eyes. Mom said she was going to tell everybody. When? Soon? That word should be illegal, I said. Maggie gave me a look. I stopped. Emma twisted the handle of her tote. Grandpa, Dad thinks Mom is cheating, doesn't he? I did not like putting Daniel's suspicion on his daughter, so I said, Your father found money he didn't understand and meetings he didn't know about. He's trying to figure out what they mean. That means yes. It means he's worried. She's not. Not what? Cheating. The certainty in her voice mattered. You know that? Yes. How? Because Lucas isn't like that. Not like that. I waited. Emma realized she had nearly said too much again. Who is he? I can't because your mother asked you not to? She nodded. Did she ask before or after you met him? Before? That interested me. So she told you about him first? No? I frowned. Emma looked miserable. I found out. How? I'm not supposed to tell that part either. Maggie put one hand on her arm. Sweetheart, nobody here wants to force you to betray your mother. Emma looked relieved. Then I added, but I'm not going to promise your father a lie if he asks me directly whether I know something. Her relief disappeared. I know. Does Claire know Daniel found the transfers? Yes. Does she know he thinks there may be another man? Emma looked startled. I don't think so. He confronted her Tuesday. I was at soccer. Did she say anything afterward? She asked if I'd talked to Dad about Lucas. What did you say? No. Was she relieved? Emma nodded. That bothered me. Not because Claire had to tell Daniel everything the moment Emma learned it, because she had made their daughter responsible for keeping track of what her father knew. There is a difference between asking a teenager for privacy and making her part of the machinery of secrecy. How much do you know about the money? I asked. Some. Did Lucas ask for it? Not at first. At first. What changed? He had problems. What kind? Car, rent, school, the transfer memos. There was my verification. Daniel had interpreted them as possible cover stories. Emma treated them as literal. What school? Community college. Which one? I don't remember. Is he in trouble? No. Drugs? No. Police? No. Gambling? Grandpa. Those are ordinary reasons adults suddenly need $17,000. He's not like that. You've known him 4 months. She looked at me hard. I know who he is. That sentence had more weight than the others. Maggie heard it too. Emma, she said gently, when you say he's family, what does that mean? Emma started crying, quietly. No dramatic collapse, just tears she was angry at herself for letting out. I promised Mom. Maggie handed her a napkin. Not a tissue. We keep tissues in the hall. Grandmothers use what is closest. You do not have to tell us, she said. Emma wiped her face. Dad's going to hate her. You don't know that, I said. He will. Why? Because she should have told him years ago. Years, not months. That changed the scale. When did Claire first know Lucas existed? Emma froze. I had hit the right question accidentally. Emma, she stood. I need to go. I did not stop her. At the back door, she turned around. Grandpa. Yes? Mom didn't take the money because she wanted to leave Dad. I didn't say she did. And Lucas didn't ask her to hide anything from him. That mattered too. So, whose idea was the secrecy? She looked down. Mom's. Then she left. Maggie and I watched through the window as Emma crossed the yard to the small path between our house and the next street, where she had left her bicycle. Neither of us spoke until she was gone. Then Maggie said, Years. Yes. What did she mean? I don't know. You have a theory. I have arithmetic. I went to my office, not to contact Lucas. I had promised Daniel I would not, and even without that promise, a 24-year-old stranger did not need his grandfather by investigation calling him before I knew what I was investigating. I pulled up the notes I had made from Daniel's screenshots. Lucas Bennett was 24. Claire was 41, 17 years. I stared at the numbers. Maggie stood behind my chair. You see it? I see that it's possible. What is? I turned toward her. You said it first. I did not. You were thinking it. She sat on the corner of my desk. Tom, Claire was 17 when he was born. Approximately. Don't become an accountant because you're uncomfortable. I was an electrical contractor. You build like an accountant. I looked at the screen again. 24. Claire had been 17. That did not prove anything. Lucas could have been a cousin. A half-brother born late to one of Claire's parents. A child of some relative we never knew. Family contains more arrangements than a genealogy chart makes obvious. Still, Emma's words stayed with me. She should have told him years ago. Do you remember Claire ever talking about being 17? I asked. Maggie thought. Not specifically. High school. Some. She ever mentioned missing a semester? Maggie looked at me. Why would I remember that? I don't know. Then her expression changed. What? She didn't graduate with her class. I sat straighter. How do you know? Joyce told me once. Claire's mother. When? Years ago. Emma was little. What did she say? Maggie closed her eyes, trying to retrieve it. We were talking about teenagers. Claire had been arguing with Daniel about something Emma would probably do someday. Joyce said Claire had given them more trouble at 17 than Emma ever could. That could mean anything. I know. What about graduation? She said Claire finished later. Why? I thought illness. You thought, or she said? Maggie frowned. I don't remember. That was the problem with memory. People think experience means you remember everything. Mostly it means you know which gaps matter. I searched nothing more. No yearbooks, no adoption records, no social media archaeology. Not yet. Because one possible explanation had already become dangerous enough. If Lucas was Claire's son, then Daniel had been married 19 years to a woman who had never told him she had another child. If Lucas was not her son, I could do serious damage by walking into their marriage carrying the idea. So, I did what I had spent a career teaching younger men to do when a circuit behaved in a way they did not understand. Stop touching things until you know where the power is coming from. At 6:30 that evening, Daniel called. His voice sounded flat. I told Claire about the lawyer. How'd she take it? She asked whether I'd filed anything. Did you? No. Then? She sat down. I waited. She asked if the lawyer told me to empty accounts. What did you say? That I'm not emptying anything. Good. She started crying. And? I asked her again who Lucas is. My hand tightened around the phone. What did she say? That she'll tell me tomorrow. Tomorrow. At your house. I looked toward the kitchen where Maggie was slicing tomatoes. My house? She wants you and Mom there? Why? She said because once she tells me, I may not believe she kept it from me for the reason she did. That was not reassuring. Did she say why Emma has to be there? Daniel went silent. Then, how do you know Emma has to be there? There are moments when a small omission becomes a decision. I could have said Claire told me. She had not. I could have avoided the question. That would make me part of the same problem. Emma came by this afternoon. His voice changed. She told you. Not who Lucas is. What did she tell you? That she knows him. She's met him with Claire. Nothing from Daniel. Daniel? My daughter has met him? Yes. And nobody told me? Yes. How long has she known? Since April? He laughed once. It sounded worse than anger. Great. She did not want to lie to you. She did. She kept something from you. What difference is that supposed to make? At 16, a large one. You always do that. Do what? Make the wording more reasonable. I almost defended myself, then stopped. What are you actually angry at me about? He took a breath. That you found out my daughter knew a man my wife has secretly sent $17,000 to, and you didn't call me. It had been 4 hours, I could say that. It would sound like bookkeeping. I decided Emma shouldn't have to become the person who broke her mother's secret. So you decided for me what I could wait to know. That hit harder than he intended, because it was true. My reasons were decent, so were many bad decisions. I should have called and told you Emma knew him, I said. Daniel went quiet. I continued. I could have done that without making her explain who he was. Yes, you're right. Another pause. I wasn't expecting that. Enjoy it. They're limited. He almost laughed. Not quite. Then he said, Claire wants us there at 10 tomorrow. We'll be there. It's your house. You know what I mean. Before he hung up, I asked one question. Daniel, when you met Claire, how old was she? 22. Did she ever tell you much about high school? Why? Just answer. He thought. Not much. She hated talking about senior year. Did she graduate late? Silence. How did you know that? I looked at the numbers on my desk. I'm trying not to know anything yet. Daniel did not understand that answer. I did. My first theory had been that Claire was helping some hidden relative connected to her parents. A younger half-brother made sense of the money. A family scandal made sense of the secrecy. Emma knowing him made the affair theory weaker, but the ages had introduced another possibility, one I was not willing to say aloud until Claire did. The next morning, at 9:53, Claire's car pulled into our driveway. Emma was in the passenger seat. Claire did not get out immediately. Neither did Emma. 7 minutes later, Daniel parked behind them. For a while, all three sat in separate parts of the same driveway. Then Claire opened her door. She carried no papers, no bag, nothing except a small photograph in her hand. When she entered the kitchen, she placed it face down on the table and looked directly at Daniel. I should have told you before we got married, she said. Daniel remained standing. Claire turned the photograph over. It showed a 17-year-old girl I recognized only after looking twice. Claire. She was sitting in a hospital bed. In her arms was a newborn boy, and on the back, in Joyce Mercer's handwriting, was a date 24 years earlier and one name, Lucas. Daniel did not touch the photograph. He looked at Claire, then at the baby, then back at Claire. How old were you? 17. His voice was so controlled I almost wished he would get angry. And Lucas is 24. Yes. You gave birth to him. Yes. And he was adopted. Yes. Emma sat beside her mother. Claire kept both hands flat on the table. The Bennetts adopted him when he was 3 days old. David and Karen Bennett. They lived in Johnson City. Daniel finally sat down. Did you know them? No, not then. Open adoption? Not really. What does that mean? It was supposed to be closed. My parents arranged everything through an agency and an attorney. I knew their last name, but I wasn't supposed to have contact. Your parents knew. Yes. Eric? Claire shook her head. My brother was 11. Mom and Dad told him I was staying with an aunt because I was sick. Daniel stared at her. You disappeared long enough to have a baby, and your brother didn't know. I finished school through an alternative program afterward. That explained the late graduation. I said nothing. This was not my interrogation. Daniel looked at the photograph again. What about the father? Claire's face tightened. His name was Nathan Cole. He was 18. We went to the same high school. Did he know? Yes. Did he sign the adoption? Yes. Where is he now? I don't know. You've never looked? Not in years. Daniel nodded once. Not acceptance, processing. Then he asked the question I had been waiting for. When were you planning to tell me you had a son? Claire looked at him. Before we got married. Nobody moved. Daniel leaned back. But you didn't. No. 19 years. I know. You told me about the boyfriend you dated sophomore year. Yes. You told me you got arrested once for drinking beer behind a skating rink. I wasn't arrested. You were taken home by a deputy. That's not the point. No, Claire. Apparently it isn't. His voice rose slightly. Emma flinched. Daniel saw it and immediately lowered himself again. That told me more about the kind of father he was than anything else that morning. He looked at Emma. I'm not angry at you. Her eyes filled. You should be. No. I knew. You're 16. That doesn't make me stupid. I didn't say it did. You always say I'm old enough to know better. About leaving wet towels on your floor. Not carrying your mother's 24-year-old secret. Claire closed her eyes. Daniel. He looked at her. Do not make her defend you. I wasn't. She thinks she has to. Claire swallowed. That one landed. Maggie got up and poured coffee nobody had asked for. It gave her something to do. I noticed her hands were not completely steady. At the time, I assumed she was upset for Daniel. Later, I understood why I should have paid more attention. Daniel asked, "When did Lucas find you?" "Last September." 9 months of transfers. That fit. "How?" "He used an ancestry site." "Were you on it?" "No." "My cousin Melissa was." I remembered Melissa Mercer vaguely. Christmas cards, one wedding. People you remain connected to mostly because somebody still knows the address. Lucas matched with her as a close relative. He messaged her. She called me. What did he want? At first, medical history. That surprised Daniel, not me. It was one of the ordinary reasons adopted adults searched. Claire continued. Karen died 3 years ago. David died last summer. Lucas said there were things about his health he couldn't answer. What health things? Nothing terrible. What? His doctor wanted more family history because his cholesterol was high for his age, and there's heart disease on my father's side. Daniel rubbed his forehead. So he wasn't looking for money? No. Did he know your name? First name. The agency had given his parents a short background sheet. Age, interests, medical history, nothing identifying. And Melissa gave him your information. She asked me first. What did you say? At first, no. Daniel looked up. You refused. I panicked. For how long? 3 weeks? And then? I wrote him. What did you tell him? Claire looked at the photograph. That I was glad he found me? Her voice broke. And that I was sorry it took me 3 weeks to say it. For the first time that morning, Daniel's anger changed shape. He was still hurt. But Lucas was becoming a person rather than evidence. What did he say? That he wasn't angry. Was he? I think a little. Daniel nodded. Reasonable. Claire accepted that. They exchanged emails for a month. Then phone calls. Their first meeting happened in November at a restaurant in Johnson City. That matched one of the credit card charges. The second was in February, the third in April. The hotel charge Daniel found was from April because Claire took Emma. Emma had a regional soccer tournament in Kingsport that weekend. At least that was what Daniel had believed the trip was entirely about. The tournament was real. So was the hotel. Claire simply used Sunday afternoon to introduce Emma to the half-brother she had never known existed. Daniel looked at his daughter. You met him during the soccer trip. Emma nodded. Mom told me Saturday night. At the hotel? Yes. What did you think? I thought she was joking. No, you didn't. Okay. I thought maybe she'd lost her mind. That was so specifically Emma that Maggie almost smiled. Daniel did not. What happened Sunday? We had lunch. With Lucas. Yes. What was he like? Emma looked at Claire before answering. Daniel noticed. Don't check with your mother. I asked you. Emma looked back at him. He was nervous. So were you? Yes. What did you talk about? School, soccer, his job. Did he ask about me? Another hesitation. Yes. Daniel waited. What did you say? That you worked in building supply. That you hate tomatoes. I don't hate tomatoes. You remove them from everything. I don't like raw tomatoes. Dad. Fine. For half a second, they sounded normal. Then Daniel asked, what did Lucas think I knew? Claire's head came up. There was the first question that truly frightened her. I saw it. So did Daniel. He turned toward his wife. What did you tell him about me? Not much. That wasn't what I asked. Daniel? Did Lucas think I knew he existed? Claire went still. Emma looked confused. That told me she had never considered it. Claire said, eventually. Eventually what? I told him I was married. That is not an answer. She looked down. Lucas assumed I had told you about the adoption years ago, and you corrected him. Silence. Claire. No. Daniel got up. Not violently. He simply needed distance from the table. He walked to the kitchen window and stood with his back to us. So Lucas thinks his biological mother has been married 19 years to a man who knows he exists. Yes. And when you started meeting him, what did you tell Lucas about why I wasn't coming? Claire's answer barely carried across the room. That you wanted to give me space. Daniel turned around. I saw exactly what hurt. not jealousy. He had already moved past that. Claire had created a version of him in another man's life, a husband who knew, a husband who understood, a husband who was patiently waiting until his wife was ready to introduce everybody. None of that husband's generosity had cost Daniel anything, because Daniel did not know he was providing it. "What else did I supposedly think?" Claire started crying. "Nothing. Did I approve the money? No. Did he think I did? Not specifically. What does that mean? He thought it was my money." Daniel stared at her. "It was our savings." "I know. No, I need to understand how you thought about it." Claire wiped her face. "I have money in that account too." "Yes." "We both contribute." "Yes." "I never took more than I put in." That was the first defensive thing she had said all morning. Daniel heard it. "So you kept a private ledger?" "No. You just knew." "I knew approximately." "Claire, you moved $17,300 to someone I did not know existed. He's my son. I understand that now." His voice stayed controlled. "You understood it when you made the first transfer. I didn't." She looked away. "Why did he need money?" I asked. Daniel glanced at me. I almost apologized for entering the conversation. Then Claire answered, "His car transmission went out in October. He missed work. Then he fell behind on rent." "First transfer?" 800. Daniel checked his phone. It matched. "After that?" "He enrolled in an industrial maintenance program at Northeast State. School, tuition, some books, tools, spring balance. His financial aid didn't cover everything." "And the 2,800? "Dental work." Daniel scrolled. Every explanation fit one of the memos. That did not excuse the secrecy. It weakened the theory that the money itself contained some darker story. Daniel sat again. "So if I ask Lucas, he'll tell me the same thing?" "Yes." "Can I see receipts?" Claire looked surprised. "I have some." "Why?" "Because I wanted to know where the larger amounts were going." That was important. She had not been blindly funding a stranger. She had been behaving in some ways like a cautious parent. Privately, Daniel put his phone down. "I thought you were having an affair." Claire closed her eyes. "I know." "You know?" "After Tuesday, yes." "Why didn't you tell me then?" "I almost did." "You keep almost doing very important things." She absorbed that. He continued, "You could have ended this in one sentence. I have a son." Claire looked at him. "I was afraid that sentence would end something else." There was the emotional center. Not Lucas, not $17,000. Fear of what Daniel would do with the truth. He asked, "Did you think I'd leave you because you had a baby before we met?" "At 22? Yes." "Why?" Claire did not answer. Her eyes moved. Not toward Emma, not toward me, toward Maggie, only for a second. But I saw it. I looked at my wife. She had gone pale. "Maggie?" Daniel followed my eyes. "What?" Maggie put both hands around her coffee mug. I knew her well enough to recognize a person buying 3 seconds. "Maggie!" She looked at me, then Daniel. Claire whispered, "You don't have to." Maggie's face changed. That sentence gave her away before she spoke. Daniel stood again. His voice was quiet. "Mom?" She took a breath. I knew Claire had a baby. Nobody moved. Daniel stared at her. "How?" "She told me." "When?" Maggie looked down at the coffee, then back at her son. 3 weeks before your wedding." Daniel did not speak. Neither did I. Until that moment, I thought I was sitting beside my wife while we watched our son learn that his marriage had begun with a secret. Then I understood something worse. Maggie had been sitting beside me for 19 years, carrying the same secret. And while I had spent 2 days wondering what Claire was afraid Daniel might do if he learned the truth, my own wife already knew the answer Claire had been afraid of before Daniel ever put on a wedding ring. Daniel looked at his mother for a long time, 3 weeks before the wedding. Maggie nodded. "You knew?" "Yes." "And Dad didn't?" "No." I looked at my wife. She did not try to explain that part away. Daniel pulled out the chair across from her and sat. "What did Claire tell you?" Claire spoke first. "Maggie?" "No," Daniel said. "I'm asking Mom." Claire stopped. Maggie folded her hands. "She came here one afternoon when you were at work." "To this house?" "Yes." "We were living in the apartment off Cedar Bluff then." "I remember." "What did she say?" Maggie looked toward Claire, then back at Daniel. She said there was something about her past she had never told you, and she was afraid if she married you without telling you, it would be dishonest. Daniel's jaw tightened. So she knew, Claire whispered. Yes. He did not look at her. What else? She told me about Lucas. All of it? As much as she could. What does that mean? Maggie took a breath. That she was 17, that she became pregnant, that her parents arranged the adoption, that she spent the last months of the pregnancy staying with her mother's sister near Chattanooga so people from school wouldn't know. Emma stared at her mother. You never told me that. Claire looked at her daughter. I didn't tell you everything. Daniel gave a short laugh. Nobody joined him. Maggie continued. Claire said she had been trying to tell you for months. I never heard the first word. I know. Why couldn't she? Claire answered. Because of something you said. Daniel finally turned toward her. What? She looked embarrassed even now. There was a dinner at your apartment. He waited. Ryan was there, and Brad Collins. Daniel frowned. I barely remember Brad. You worked with him. For 6 months. Claire nodded. His engagement had ended. Something changed in Daniel's face. Not recognition yet. Claire continued. You said his fiancée had waited until after they were engaged to tell him she had a daughter, living with her parents in Kentucky. Daniel remembered. I could see it. She lied to him. Yes. For a year. Yes. What does that have to do with you? Claire swallowed. You said if the person you planned to marry had a child somewhere and didn't tell you before the wedding, you'd walk. Daniel stared at her. That woman had an 8-year-old daughter she was actively seeing. I know. She was leaving town twice a month and telling Brad she was visiting a friend. I know. She asked him to marry her while hiding an entire living relationship. I know. You had placed a baby for adoption before we met. I know they weren't the same. Then why? Because I was 22 and terrified. That stopped him. Claire wiped her face. You said it so easily. Everybody at the table agreed. There wasn't even a debate. Daniel looked toward Ryan, as if the man might somehow be sitting in our kitchen 20 years later. I was talking about lying. I heard the child part. I would have understood. You know that now. I knew it then. No. Claire shook her head. You think you know what you would have done. Daniel leaned back. And you decided I wasn't allowed to find out. She closed her eyes. Yes. There was no defense left in her voice, just admission. Daniel looked at Maggie. What did you tell her? Maggie took longer. I told her she had to tell you. That surprised him. It surprised me too. You did? Yes. When? That day. And? She said she was afraid you'd cancel the wedding. I might have. Claire's face tightened. Daniel continued. Not because she had Lucas, because she'd waited until 3 weeks before we got married. Maggie nodded. I told her that was a risk she had created. I looked at my wife. That sounded like Maggie. Practical. Sometimes painfully so. Daniel asked, Then why didn't you make sure she told me? Maggie looked down. Because I thought she would. Thought. Yes. Did you ask? Not before the wedding. The kitchen became very quiet. What happened after? Maggie glanced at Claire. Claire was crying again. Daniel said, Mom. About a month after your honeymoon, Claire came by and told you she hadn't. Yes. Daniel stood. He walked 3 steps towards the counter, then turned back. So that's when you told me. Maggie's eyes filled. No. You called her parents? No. You told Dad? No. You did what? I told Claire she had made the situation worse and needed to tell you herself. And then you went home? We were already home. You know what I mean? Maggie nodded. I know. How long did you wait? She said nothing. Daniel's face changed. Mom, I never told you. 19 years reduced to 4 words. Daniel looked at Claire, then at his mother, then at me. I understood why last night's lawyer had become necessary for him. His wife had hidden a son. His daughter had been pulled into the secret. Now his mother had known before the marriage and stayed silent afterward. Every direction he looked, someone had made a decision about what Daniel Avery should be allowed to know. He looked at me. You knew nothing? No. Not one hint? No. Then I asked Maggie, why not? Her face crumpled in a way I rarely saw. Because I knew what you'd do. I felt that sentence physically. What would I do? You'd tell Daniel. Yes. Immediately. Yes. Even if Claire begged for time. How much time did she need? 20 years? Tom. No. You said you kept this from me because you knew what I'd do. Maggie's voice rose. I was trying not to destroy their wedding. You weren't protecting a wedding after they were married. I know. Then why keep it from me afterward? She stared at the table. When she answered, her voice was smaller. Because once the wedding happened, telling you meant admitting I had already kept it from you. That was honest, painfully so. The secret had developed its own reason to survive. At first, Claire hid Lucas because she feared Daniel's reaction. Maggie hid the conversation because she wanted Claire to tell him herself. Then, once Daniel married Claire without knowing, Maggie's silence became part of the problem. Every month made disclosure harder. Every year made the previous year look worse. Eventually, protecting the secret and protecting herself became impossible to separate. Daniel asked, "Did you ever tell Claire not to tell me?" "No," Claire said. "She didn't." "Did Mom encourage you to keep quiet?" "No." "Not once?" Claire looked at Maggie. "No. She asked me more than once when I was going to tell you." Daniel's face changed slightly. That weakened one assumption. Maggie had participated in the silence. She had not created it. "When was the last time?" he asked. Claire wiped her cheeks. "When Emma was born." Daniel looked toward his daughter. Emma's eyes widened. "Why then?" Maggie answered. "Because I thought becoming a mother might make Claire see differently what she owed you." Claire looked at her. "You said that?" "Yes." "I don't remember." "I do," Daniel asked. "And what did Claire say?" Maggie hesitated. "That telling you then would make you wonder whether you could trust anything about her." Daniel laughed once. "She was right." Claire looked down. Nobody had an answer to that. A little before noon, Daniel left. He did not storm out. He hugged Emma. That mattered. When Claire stood as if she expected something too, he said, "I can't yet." She sat back down. He told Maggie he loved her. Then added, "I don't want to talk to you today." Maggie nodded. "I understand." At the door, he looked at me. "Come with me." I followed him outside. He stopped beside his Explorer. "I'm going back to the lawyer Monday." "Okay." "I'm not saying I'm filing." "Okay." "You think I should stay?" "I haven't said that." "You think families should stay together?" "I think people should know what they're staying in before they decide." He looked at me. "That sounds like a lawyer. It's free." For the first time all morning, he almost smiled. Then his face hardened again. $17,000. Yes. Everybody keeps getting emotional about Lucas. That doesn't make the money disappear. No. I want every transfer accounted for. Reasonable. And I want to know what else Claire has hidden. Also reasonable. Then he asked, "Do you believe her? About Lucas?" "All of it," I thought before answering. "I believe the affair theory is probably wrong." He looked away. "That's not what I asked." "I know," I continued. "I believe what she told us explains the age, the Johnson City trips, the school memos, why Emma knows him, and why she called him family." Daniel nodded reluctantly. "That's a lot." "It is." But a good explanation for one's secret does not prove there aren't others." He looked back at me. "Exactly." I put a hand on his shoulder. "Don't go searching for a bigger crime just because the first explanation hurt." He stared at me. "That sounds like something you learned from work." "It's something I learned from your mother this morning." That was not fair to Maggie. Not entirely. Daniel knew it. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Turn Mom into the villain because Claire lied." I looked at him. 5 minutes earlier, he had been furious with Maggie. Now he was protecting her from me. Families are inefficient that way. "She made her own decision," I said. "Yes." "So did Claire." "Yes." "So will you." He nodded, then drove away. Inside, Emma had gone to the guest room. Claire was on our back porch alone. Maggie stood at the sink, washing coffee cups that were already clean. I took the towel from her hand. "Stop," she let me. For a while we said nothing. Then I asked, "Did you really believe Daniel would leave Claire if he knew?" "At first, yes." "I didn't know." "That's not what I asked." She looked at me. "I thought he might postpone the wedding." "That would have been his choice." "I know." "Claire's too." "I know." "And somehow everybody who knew decided Daniel's choice was the dangerous one." Maggie looked hurt. That isn't what I thought. It's what happened. She sat at the table. I was afraid if I pushed Claire, she'd disappear. Disappear? She was ashamed, Tom. Of Lucas? Of what happened to her. I sat across from her. That distinction mattered. What happened to her? Maggie looked toward the porch, making sure Claire was not near the door. Her parents didn't give her much choice. I waited. Joyce told her they would support her through the pregnancy if she agreed to adoption. And if she didn't? Her father said she could leave the house. I stared at her. At 17. Yes. Did Daniel know that part? I don't think Claire told him today. She didn't. Maggie rubbed her forehead. Her parents chose the family, chose the agency, chose where she stayed. They even chose what she could put in the letter that went with Lucas. That legal? She signed everything. That wasn't my question. I don't know. Neither did I. And I was not going to turn an old adoption into a legal investigation based on kitchen table memory. But it changed something. Claire had not spent 24 years casually pretending she never had a child. She had spent them carrying a decision that had been made when she was legally a minor, frightened, dependent on her parents, and told the respectable solution was to let everybody behave afterward as if Lucas had never existed. Then he found her. And instead of correcting that old pattern, Claire had repeated it. She decided what Daniel could handle. She decided when Emma could know. She decided money from a shared account could be treated as private because the reason felt private. The method was familiar, even if the motive was painful. I went onto the porch. Claire was looking across the yard. I sat in the chair beside her. Did Lucas ask for $17,000? No. How much did he ask for? She thought. The first 800. And the rest? I offered. Why? Her face tightened. Because I could. That's not the reason. She looked toward the yard. After a while she said, because I couldn't give him anything when he was born. There it was. The money was not an affair. It was not blackmail. It was not even mainly financial support. It was 24 years of guilt translated into car repairs, tuition, rent, tools, and dental bills, because dollars were easier for Claire to offer than the truth. And that meant Daniel's original theory was falling apart. The problem was that what replaced it was not smaller. His wife had not been building a second romantic life. She had been trying to repair a first family she had lost before adulthood, while hiding that repair from the husband and daughter who belonged to the life she built afterward. The question was no longer whether Claire loved someone else. It was whether Daniel could remain married to a woman who had spent 19 years believing love gave her permission to choose which truths he was allowed to live with. The question was no longer whether Claire loved someone else. It was whether Daniel could remain married to a woman who had spent 19 years believing love gave her permission to choose which truths he was allowed to live with. He did not answer that question Monday. He did something more useful. He went back to the lawyer. Keene, Marlowe, and Finch had an attorney named Susan Keene, who had practiced family law for almost 30 years. Daniel told me later that she listened to the new information without reacting much. No affair. A biological son placed for adoption before Daniel and Claire met. $17,300 transferred from marital savings. A daughter who had been brought into the secret. A mother who knew before the wedding. When he finished, Susan asked him one question. What decision are you trying to make today? Daniel said, whether to file. That's a legal action. I asked what decision. He told me that irritated him, which was probably why it helped. Eventually he admitted he did not know. Susan told him not knowing was allowed. She also told him he had two separate problems and would make worse decisions if he insisted on treating them as one. The first was financial. Claire had moved significant money from a joint account without his knowledge. That could be documented. The second was relational. Claire had hidden Lucas. That could not be solved with bank statements. Susan suggested he account for the money first because facts were easier to stabilize than feelings. So that afternoon, Daniel came to my house with 3 years of statements downloaded onto his laptop. Why here? I asked. Because if I do this at home, Claire will think I'm building a divorce case. Are you? I'm trying to know what happened. That was different. I made coffee. He opened spreadsheets. For the first hour, I did very little. Daniel was good with numbers. Sales management had taught him how to work through margins, receivables, rebates, freight allowances, and customer credits without panicking because one figure looked wrong. The 11 transfers to Lucas totaled exactly $17,300. That part did not change. What changed was the surrounding money. Claire had not quietly drained their emergency fund. Their savings balance 18 months earlier had been about $83,000. It was now a little under $79,000. Wait, I said. Daniel looked at the screen. I know. If 17 went out, why are you down 4? Bonuses. Claire worked as communications director for a regional healthcare nonprofit. She had received 2 unusually good annual bonuses. Daniel had also received a sales incentive the previous December. They had deposited most of both into savings. That did not make Claire's transfers acceptable. It did mean the phrase 17,000 missing created a different picture than the statements did. You still had access to the money the whole time, I said. Yes. And the account was growing during part of this. Yes. Daniel leaned back. I hate that this makes me feel petty. It shouldn't. She had no right. I agree. But we weren't missing mortgage payments. No. Emma's college account is untouched. Yes. Retirement's untouched. Yes. He stared at the spreadsheet. It would almost be easier if she'd emptied us. I understood. Financial danger comes with cleaner anger. This was an injury of permission. He could afford what Claire did. That did not mean she had the right to do it without him. We matched every transfer against the explanation she had given. October. Transmission and missed rent. November, tires. December. 2 smaller payments, 1 for utilities, 1 for groceries. February, tuition. March. Tools required for Lucas's industrial maintenance program. May, remaining spring balance. June, dental work. July. Another rent payment after Lucas changed jobs. There were receipts for most of the larger expenses because Claire had emailed them to herself. Daniel noticed something else. She asked for documentation. Yes. Why hide from me and then make Lucas prove what he spent? Because secrecy and care can exist in the same person. He gave me a look. I'm getting tired of sentences like that. Then stop bringing complicated problems. At 5:30, his phone rang. Claire. He looked at the screen, did not answer. 30 seconds later, a text came through. He read it, then turned the phone toward me. Lucas says he'll talk to you if you want. No pressure. I gave him your number only after he said it was okay. Daniel read it again. You think I should call? I think you should decide. Very helpful. You're welcome. He waited 13 minutes. I know because the clock on my office wall was directly behind him. Then he called. Lucas? A pause. This is Daniel Avery. His face changed when the person answered. Not recognition. Reality. Lucas had existed as a name in banking records, a photograph, and a problem inside his marriage. Now he had a voice. Daniel stood and walked into the backyard. I stayed inside. 27 minutes later, he came back. He wants to meet. When? Tomorrow. You? He asked if Claire should come. What did you say? No. I nodded. He okay with that? Yes. Where? A diner near Morristown. Halfway. Then Daniel surprised me. Come with me. No. He frowned. Why? Because this is not my meeting. You're already involved. That does not make every next step mine. He looked irritated, then thoughtful. Will you drive? That's different. So Tuesday morning, I drove, my truck. Daniel noticed the GPS unit when he climbed in. Still tracking me? It tracks the vehicle. Very important distinction. It was last Thursday. He looked out the window. You know what I thought sitting in your truck that night? What? That if I filed for divorce, everybody would eventually know I went to a lawyer before I even knew the truth. You didn't file. I know. You went for information. I know that too. He looked toward me. I still felt guilty. Why? Because I was planning the end of my marriage while Claire was trying to figure out how to tell me about something that happened when she was 17. I kept my eyes on the road. Both can be true. I know. You also thought she might be cheating. I know. You went to a lawyer instead of emptying accounts or accusing her in front of Emma. He nodded. That counts. The diner sat near Interstate 40 in a strip beside a tire store. Lucas was already there. I recognized him before Daniel did. Not because he looked exactly like Claire, he did not. He had darker hair and a longer face, but when the waitress approached, he smiled at her the way Claire did when she was nervous. Small. Polite. Like apologizing for taking up space. Daniel stopped 2 steps from the booth. Lucas? He stood. Yeah. I'm Daniel. They shook hands. No hug. Thank God. Real life does not arrange emotional geometry that neatly. I introduced myself, then took a booth across the aisle with coffee and a newspaper I did not read. I could hear pieces without hearing everything. Lucas talked first, his adoptive parents. Karen taught elementary school. David worked for Eastman before retiring. Good childhood. No secret misery. No story about spending 24 years searching for the mother who abandoned him. That mattered. He loved the Bennetts. Calling Claire his biological mother did not erase them. After David died, Lucas found the agency paperwork in a fireproof box. Medical information, non-identifying history, and one envelope. That was when I stopped pretending to read. Lucas reached into a backpack. I brought this because I think you should see it. Daniel unfolded several photocopied pages. What is it? A letter Claire wrote before I was born. Daniel looked toward him. She knew your parents had it? No. Lucas shook his head. Apparently, the agency let birth mothers write something if the adoptive family agreed to keep it. Daniel began reading. I watched his expression. Not anger. Something slower. After a minute, he handed me the pages. You need to read this. I almost refused. Then I saw why. The handwriting was Claire's, younger and rounder. She had been 17. She wrote that she loved the baby she had not met yet. She wrote that she hoped he grew up in a house where people laughed at dinner. She wrote that she was good at English and bad at chemistry. She wrote that her father believed adoption was the only responsible choice. Then halfway down the second page was a sentence that changed the story again. I want you to know I asked if I could keep you, but I was told I would have nowhere to live and no way to finish school if I did. I stopped. The next line was worse. Maybe someday I will understand why grown-ups say something is your choice when every other choice has been taken away. I looked at Daniel. He had turned toward the window. Lucas sat across from him. I didn't show Claire that part when I first contacted her, Lucas said. Why? I didn't know if it would hurt her. When did she see it? April, the soccer trip, the hotel, Emma meeting Lucas. Daniel asked, what happened? She cried for maybe an hour. Lucas looked uncomfortable, describing it. She said she didn't remember writing some of it. Do you believe that? Yeah. Why? Because she remembered other parts. Then Lucas took out another document. Not legal. A handwritten note on hotel stationery. Claire's handwriting now. I found this after she left, he said. She forgot it? No. She gave it to me. Daniel read it, then passed it across. Claire had written, I spent years telling myself the adoption was a decision I made because that was easier than admitting how little choice I felt I had. I don't want to make you carry my guilt. If you want a relationship with me, I want one. If you don't, I will respect that. Then, you do not owe me closeness because I am your biological mother. I handed it back. That sentence mattered more than the money. Claire understood, at least with Lucas, that love did not create entitlement. The painful contradiction was that she had not applied the same rule to Daniel. Daniel asked, Did you ask her for money after this? Lucas shook his head. She asked what I needed. Same thing. Not really. How much did you ask for? The transmission money? And the rest? She offered. Did you ever think it was coming from me too? Lucas looked embarrassed. I thought you knew. Daniel's face hardened. I didn't. I know that now. What exactly did Claire tell you? Lucas hesitated. That you knew about me. Anything else? She said you were giving her time to figure out how to make it normal. Daniel looked down. Did she say I didn't want to meet you? No. That was important. Did she make me sound like I objected to you? No. Another piece of his anger lost its easiest target. Lucas continued. She actually said you were a good guy. Daniel laughed quietly. Generous of me. Lucas did not smile. I'm sorry. Daniel looked at him. For what? All this. No. His answer came immediately. This part is not yours. Lucas nodded. I watched Daniel say the thing I had been hoping someone would say to Emma, too. Adults should carry adult secrets. Children should not inherit guilt just because they are standing nearby. Before we left, Lucas asked one question. Do you want me to stay away from Claire? Daniel looked surprised. No. From Emma? No. From you? That one took longer. I don't know you. Fair. But I don't want you disappearing because my marriage is complicated. Lucas nodded. Okay. On the drive home, Daniel held the photocopy of Claire's old letter in his lap. Halfway past Dandridge, he said, "I came here expecting to find out whether he was using her. Doesn't look like it, no. He has a job. Yes. School. Yes. Parents who raised him well, from the sound of it. Yes." Daniel looked at the letter. She wasn't trying to buy him. No. She was trying to be his mother 24 years late. I did not answer. He continued, "And she was doing it with money that belonged partly to me. Yes? So I'm supposed to feel sorry for her and angry at her at the same time. That sounds about right." He leaned his head against the seat, then said something that moved the story into a place neither of us had expected when we left Knoxville. "I don't think the question is whether I can forgive the adoption secret." I glanced at him. "What is it?" He looked down at the sentence 17-year-old Claire had written about grown-ups calling something a choice after taking the other choices away. "The question is why someone who spent her whole life hurting because other people decided what she could handle grew up and did exactly the same thing to everyone she loved." I did not have an answer for him. Neither did Daniel. By the time we reached Knoxville, he had stopped talking. I dropped him at his house a little after 2. Claire's car was in the driveway. Emma was still at school. Daniel sat with his hand on the door handle. "You coming in?" "No." He looked surprised. "You came all the way to Morristown. To drive? You have opinions. I always have opinions. That's never stopped you before." "Learning." He looked toward the house. "I don't know how to start." "Yes, you do." "With what?" "The thing you actually know." He waited. "You met Lucas. He isn't blackmailing Claire. He isn't having an affair with her. He thought you knew he existed." Daniel nodded. "And after that? You ask her questions?" "What if I don't like the answers?" "That seems likely." He opened the door, then stopped again. "Dad." "Yes?" "If she says she did all this because she was afraid of losing me, am I supposed to feel better?" "No." "Good. I think you're supposed to decide whether fear explains something without excusing it." He stared at me. "There you go again." "What?" "Complicated sentences." "You asked." He went inside. I drove home. Maggie was in the den sorting photographs into boxes she had been threatening to organize since 2019. She looked up. "Well, Lucas seems decent." "That's a relief." "Daniel thinks so too." "And Claire?" I stayed out of that conversation. Maggie put down a photograph. "You?" "Yes." "You feeling okay?" "I may need to lie down." She smiled for about 2 seconds. Then the distance between us returned. We had not really discussed her 19-year silence since Saturday. Other people's emergencies have a convenient way of postponing your own marriage. I sat across from her. "Why didn't you tell me?" She knew exactly what I meant. "I already told you." "You told me how it started." Maggie looked at the photographs. "What else is there?" 19 years. She closed her eyes. "Tom, I'm not asking to punish you. No, you're asking because if you can understand the logic, you think you can put it in a box. That sounds like criticism." "It is." "Fair." I waited. Finally, she said, "Every year made it harder." "I understand that." "No, I don't think you do. Try me." She picked up a photograph of Daniel and Claire at their wedding. Claire 22, Daniel 23. Both smiling like people who thought adulthood meant choosing the right person and then being finished with uncertainty. "The first year," Maggie said, "I thought Claire would tell him." "The second?" "She got pregnant with Emma." "And you thought that was a bad time?" "Yes." "The third?" "They had a newborn." "Fourth?" "Your company almost went under because of the school contract." That irritated me. What did my business have to do with it? "You were working 14 hours a day. Daniel was helping you with bids at night. Claire was barely sleeping. So? So there was always a reason not to throw a grenade into the family." "That metaphor assumes the truth is the grenade." Maggie looked at me. "I know. That was the problem." She knew now. Probably knew then too, just not enough to act. My phone rang at 4:40. "Daniel," I answered. His voice was tight. "Can I come over?" "Yes." "Alone." That told me enough. He arrived 15 minutes later carrying an overnight bag. Maggie saw it through the window. "Oh no," Daniel came inside. "I'm staying here tonight." Neither of us asked whether Claire had thrown him out. He answered anyway. She didn't. Maggie said, "What happened?" Daniel dropped the bag beside the stairs. I asked her to show me everything. "What does everything mean?" I asked. "Accounts, messages with Lucas, emails, all of it." And she showed me the money. That's good. She showed me most of the emails. Most? She said some of them were private. I understood both sides immediately. Daniel did not want nuance yet. I told her 19 years of hidden information had used up her privacy. Maggie winced. What did she say? That privacy and secrecy aren't the same thing. I almost smiled. Apparently this family has started holding vocabulary seminars. Daniel ignored me. She said Lucas told her things about his adoptive parents that aren't mine to read. That sounds reasonable? Daniel looked at me sharply. So now you're taking her side. No. You just said, I said Lucas gets privacy. He stopped. Claire can show you what concerns your marriage without handing you every sentence a 24-year-old man wrote about his dead parents. Daniel sat down. I know. His anger deflated a little. Then what happened? I asked her to promise no more money goes to Lucas without us agreeing. And? She said yes. That also sounds good. For 10 minutes, I waited. She asked what I was willing to promise. What did she want? Daniel looked embarrassed. That I wouldn't go back to the lawyer without telling her. Maggie sat down across from him. What did you say? No. Why? Because I'm allowed to talk to a lawyer. Yes, I said. So she's allowed to have private conversations too. Also, yes. He looked at me. That isn't the same. No. But you used my truck because you didn't want her seeing where you went. Daniel went still. That was one night. I know. After I found $17,000. I know. I wasn't hiding another family. I know. His voice rose. Then stop making them equivalent. I'm not. He stared at me. I continued. The duration is different. The stakes are different. The reason is different. But the method was familiar. What method? You were afraid Claire would react before you were ready. Daniel said nothing. So you made sure she couldn't know where you were. She was hiding Lucas. Yes. And I was getting legal advice. Yes. Those aren't equal. No. Then why bring it up? Because if your rule becomes secrecy is wrong when the other person does it, you're going to spend a lot on Susan Keene. Maggie almost laughed. Daniel did not. Not yet. He stood and walked toward the window. She said the same thing. I leaned back. What? She said I lied about helping you so I could sit with a divorce lawyer behind her back. That is factually accurate. She made it sound like I betrayed her. Did you? No. You sure? Yes. I waited. Then he said, maybe a little. There it was. Not equal. Still real. Daniel turned from the window. I told her I needed a few days. Here? Yes. What did Claire say? That I should take them. Maggie asked. What about Emma? She was upstairs. Did she hear you? Daniel looked away. I thought she didn't. That phrase always means she did. What happened? She came down after I packed. And? She asked if I was leaving because of Lucas. Maggie closed her eyes. What did you tell her? That I was staying with you for a few nights. Did you answer the question? No. Why? Because I don't know. Reasonable. Then Daniel said, she started crying. I waited. She said, I knew Mom shouldn't have told me. That hurt all three of us. Not because it made sense. Because Emma believed information had caused the damage. A child's oldest superstition. If I had not known, maybe everything would still be fine. Daniel sat again. I told her none of this was her fault. Good. She didn't believe me. Also normal. Then Claire came downstairs and told Emma to stop. Stop what? Blaming herself. That sounds good. It was. He rubbed his forehead. Then Claire said something I can't get past. What? She said, this is why I wanted to wait until I knew what to do. I understood immediately. Daniel did too. She still thinks the problem was timing, he said. Maybe part of her does. She thinks if she'd found the right moment, there would have been some version where nobody got hurt. That may be what she hoped. There was no right moment after 19 years. No, the right moment was before the wedding. Yes, Maggie looked down. Daniel noticed. I'm not trying to punish you, Mom. I know. Are you sure? No. That was honest enough to stop him. At 7:30, Claire called my phone instead of Daniel's. I went into the kitchen before answering. Claire? Is he there? Yes. I know he doesn't want to talk to me. He didn't say that. He isn't answering. Different. She let out a tired breath. Emma locked herself in her room. Is she safe? Yes. Then give her a little time. I don't know what to say to her. That surprised me. You're her mother. I know. Tell her the truth. A pause. That has gone extremely well this week. I deserve that. Fair. Then Claire said, Tom, did Daniel tell you why he left? Yes. Did he tell you I asked him not to go back to Susan without telling me? Yes. You think that was unreasonable? I think asking was reasonable. And him saying no? Also reasonable. She was quiet. I continued. You don't get access to his conversations with a lawyer just because you're married. But I'm supposed to give him my conversations with Lucas. Not all of them. He thinks I should. I told him otherwise. That surprised her. Then she said, I don't know what the rules are anymore. That was the first thing she had said that sounded less defensive than frightened. There aren't one set of rules for every kind of privacy. I know, Claire, Daniel is not asking whether you deserve a private thought. I know. He's asking whether you can make decisions involving shared money and your daughter while keeping him outside them. Silence. I thought I was protecting Emma. From what? Losing her family. There it was, the same fear again. How? If Daniel found out before I knew where Lucas fit, Claire, I know, no, finish it. She started crying. I thought if Daniel reacted badly, Emma would blame Lucas. Maybe. I thought she'd hate him. Maybe. I thought Lucas would think finding me destroyed my marriage. Maybe. So I wanted time. And you used Emma to help buy it. Silence. That was harsher than I intended. Still true. She found the messages, Claire said. What? In April, on my iPad. That was new. She wasn't supposed to know. So Emma discovered Lucas before you told her. Yes. What did she read? Enough. What did you ask her to do? Claire did not answer. Claire, I asked her not to tell Daniel until I could. Not Dad. Daniel. Interesting. What exactly did you say? I don't remember. I think you do. She went quiet for so long, I thought the call had dropped. Then she whispered, I told her if her father found out the wrong way, he might leave before I could explain. I closed my eyes. That was the setback. Not Daniel moving into my guest room. Not the money. Not even the lawyer. A 16-year-old girl had spent 4 months believing her parents' marriage might depend on her ability to keep the right secret long enough. Did Emma know about the money? Some. Did she know Daniel didn't? Yes. Did she ever ask you to tell him? Claire started crying harder. Yes. When? More than once. And you told her? That I would. When? I didn't know. I looked through the doorway. Daniel sat in the den with Maggie. His overnight bag remained beside the stairs. For 2 days, I had seen Emma as someone accidentally pulled into an adult secret. That was incomplete. Claire had not just allowed her daughter to know. She had given Emma a reason to believe silence was protecting the family. And that changed what I thought needed protecting first. Not the marriage, not the money, not even Daniel's right to an explanation. Emma. Claire, I'm coming over. No, that wasn't a request. Tom, I'm not coming to argue with you. Then why? Because your daughter should not spend tonight alone believing she helped decide whether her father comes home. I heard Claire breathe, then very quietly. You're right. I turned toward the den. Daniel was watching me. He had heard enough. He stood. I'm coming. I looked at him. You sure? No. This time that was enough. We drove back to his house together. Not to solve the marriage. Not to decide whether he stayed there that night. Not to force Claire into another confession. We went because somewhere in the middle of protecting Lucas, protecting Daniel, protecting herself, and protecting the life she was terrified of losing, Claire had put the weight of an adult marriage onto the one person in the house who should never have been asked to carry it. And whatever else Daniel decided about his wife, that part had to end before another night passed. And whatever else Daniel decided about his wife, that part had to end before another night passed. Claire opened the front door before we reached it. Her face told me she had been crying since my call. Daniel walked past her without touching her. Where is she? Upstairs. He headed toward the stairs. Claire caught his arm. Daniel, he stopped. She thinks you're leaving because of her. I know. No, I mean she really thinks it. So do I. Claire released him. For a second she looked like she might follow. Daniel said, "Give me 5 minutes." She nodded. I stayed downstairs. That was not an easy choice. Parents spend half their lives believing proximity is the same thing as usefulness. Sometimes the useful thing is not going upstairs. Claire sat on the bottom step. I took the chair near the front window. Neither of us spoke until we heard Emma's bedroom door open. Then, Daniel's voice. "Too quiet to understand?" Emma answered. A minute later, crying. Claire stood. I said, "Wait. She's upset. Her father is with her." "I know." "Then let him be." Claire sat again. Her hands were shaking. "I hate this. So does everybody." I should have told him. "Yes." She looked at me. "You don't have to agree so quickly. You're not asking me whether you should have bought blue curtains." That almost made her smile. Then she looked toward the stairs. When Emma found the messages in April, I thought everything was over. "What messages?" "Emails between Lucas and me." "On your iPad?" "Yes." Why was Emma using it? Her laptop battery died before a school trip. She needed something to finish an assignment. "And your email was open." Claire nodded. She saw his name. "How much did she read?" "I don't know exactly." "You asked?" "She told me enough." "What did she think?" "That I was having an affair." That surprised me. "Same as Daniel." "Yes." "What made her change her mind?" "I told her immediately." "The whole truth?" "Most of it." I noticed the word. Claire did too. She closed her eyes. "I told her Lucas was my biological son." "What did you leave out?" "How afraid I was." "That isn't a fact." It felt like one. Upstairs, Emma cried harder. Claire covered her mouth. I lowered my voice. "What happened after you told her?" "She wanted to meet him." "Immediately?" "Pretty much." "Whose idea was the soccer weekend?" "Mine." There was something in the answer. I waited. She looked at me. You're doing that thing Daniel says you do." "What thing?" "Waiting until people feel silence because you know they hate it." "That sounds efficient." "It's annoying." "Also efficient." She shook her head, then said, "I thought if Emma met Lucas and it went well, I'd know introducing him to the family was possible." There it was, not the whole thing. Enough to matter. "You used Emma as a test." Claire winced. "I didn't think of it that way." "But that is what you did." "I wanted her to have a brother. Half-brother. He doesn't feel half when you're talking to him." "That isn't the point." "I know." "Did Emma know she was the test?" "No." "Did Lucas?" "No." "So you were measuring everybody without telling them?" Her eyes filled again. "Yes." The stairs creaked. Daniel came down alone. His eyes were red. Claire stood. How is she?" "Embarrassed." "About what?" "Thinking she caused this." Daniel looked directly at his wife. "I told her she didn't." "I've told her too." "She believed me." Claire absorbed that without defending herself. "What did she say?" "She asked if I'm coming home tonight." "And?" "I told her I'm staying at Dad's." Claire looked down. Daniel continued. "But I also told her that decision is between you and me." "Good. And if I come home or don't come home, it has nothing to do with whether she told me something or kept something from me." Claire nodded. "I'm glad." "She said you told her something different." Her face changed. "What?" "That if I found out the wrong way, I might leave." Claire sat. "I know." "Did you understand what she heard?" "I do now." "No. Tell me." Claire looked toward the stairs. "That she could keep you here by keeping quiet." "Yes." Her face crumpled. Daniel did not move toward her. Not because he was cruel, because comforting the person who hurt you can become another way to avoid the injury. I respected him for knowing that. Emma came downstairs 10 minutes later. She had washed her face. At 16, that meant she wanted everyone to pretend she had not been crying. So we did. She sat beside Claire. Daniel remained across from them. I stood near the kitchen doorway. Emma said, "Can everybody stop talking about me like I'm 6? Daniel nodded. "Fair." Claire did too. Emma looked at her mother. "Did you tell Grandpa what you said in April?" "Yes." "Everything?" Claire hesitated. Emma noticed. "There's more." Daniel's posture changed. Claire closed her eyes. "Emma." "What?" I'm trying. You've been trying for like 20 years. That one came out sharper than Emma intended. She looked immediately guilty. Claire said, "You're allowed to be angry. I don't want to be angry. I know. That's the problem. I understood that." Emma looked at Daniel. "When Mom told me Lucas was her son, I asked if you knew." Daniel waited. She said not yet. Claire whispered, "Yes." I asked why. Emma looked at her mother. "You said because Dad makes decisions fast when he thinks somebody lied to him." Daniel's face tightened. "Did she?" "Yes," Claire said. "I shouldn't have," Emma continued. "You said if I met Lucas first, maybe I could help you understand that he wasn't trying to take anything from us." That changed the room. Daniel stared at Claire. She looked away. I had thought Claire used Emma as a test for herself. That was only part of it. She had also imagined Emma as evidence. If Daniel saw that his daughter liked Lucas, perhaps he would be less afraid of him. Perhaps the introduction would arrive already softened. Perhaps the decision would become easier, not forced, but influenced. "Is that true?" Daniel asked. Claire's answer took too long. "Yes." Daniel stood. He did not shout. He walked into the kitchen, turned on the faucet, then turned it off without using it. When he came back, he looked exhausted. "You brought our daughter into this so she could help sell me the idea. I didn't think of it like that. You keep saying that. I know. You didn't think of the savings as shared money. I did. You didn't think of Emma as carrying the marriage. I know. You didn't think of Lucas assuming I knew as lying about me. I know. Claire, when exactly do you think?" That hurt her. It hurt Emma, too. I stepped in. "Daniel?" He looked at me. "Not because she doesn't deserve the question." "Then why?" "Because you're asking 4 questions at once, and you won't believe any answer." He breathed through his nose, then sat. I turned toward Claire. "When you introduced Emma to Lucas, what was the plan after that?" She looked at me. "Tell Daniel." "When?" "After the soccer season." Daniel laughed quietly. "Why soccer?" "Because Emma had playoffs." Emma stared at her. "You were waiting for my soccer season?" "I didn't want this hanging over you." "It was already hanging over me." Claire nodded. "Yes." "What changed after the season?" "Lucas enrolled in the summer classes." Daniel stared at her. "So you waited again?" "Yes." "Why?" "He was overwhelmed." "Lucas was overwhelmed, so I couldn't know." "That sounds terrible when you say it." "It was terrible before he said it," Emma replied. Claire looked at her daughter. There was no place left to hide from that. I asked, "What was the next deadline?" Claire thought. "His fall tuition." "Then?" "I don't know." "Yes, you do." She closed her eyes. "I thought once Lucas was stable, once Emma knew him, once I could show Daniel that nothing about our life had to change." She stopped. Daniel finished it. "Then you would tell me." "Yes." "And you would arrive with the whole problem already solved." Claire began crying again. "Yes." That was the deeper pattern. At 17, Claire had been told the adults around her knew how to solve the problem of her pregnancy. The solution was adoption. Housing if she cooperated. School if she cooperated. Silence afterward. Nobody needed to ask what she wanted once the responsible solution had been arranged. 24 years later, Lucas returned. Claire had spent her whole adult life telling herself she hated what had been done to her. But when she became frightened, she reached for the same structure. Control every variable first, make the outcome safe, then let the other person know what had already happened. Not because she wanted power, because uncertainty had once cost her a child. She had never learned that sometimes love requires letting another person react badly, disagree, hesitate, or even leave. Daniel looked toward me. I knew what he was thinking. The lawyer, my truck. He had tried to control one variable too, get information privately, prepare for the worst. Only then tell Claire he had gone. Smaller, shorter, not equal, still recognizable. Claire looked at him. "I was terrified you would tell me not to see Lucas." "Would I have?" "I don't know." "That's the point." He leaned forward. "You were supposed to find out." She nodded. "And if I said I needed time?" "I would have thought you were rejecting him." "There it is." "What?" "You didn't trust me to have an unfinished reaction." Claire stared at him. He continued. "You needed me to respond correctly the first time." Her face changed. That landed deeper than anger, because it was true. She had spent months building a version of the truth designed to produce the least dangerous reaction. Lucas was decent. Emma liked him. The money had practical explanations. No one wanted to replace anyone. All of that was true. But she wanted every reassurance in place before Daniel was allowed to feel whatever the raw truth made him feel. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. Daniel's voice softened. You could have said that 19 years ago. I know. You could have said it last September. I know. You could have said it in April. I know. Tuesday. I know. He sat back. For the first time since he arrived, his anger seemed smaller than his grief. Emma reached toward her mother, then stopped halfway. Claire noticed. So did I. That tiny hesitation was the consequence none of the adults could explain away. Emma loved her mother, but now she was checking whether comforting Claire meant taking care of something that belonged to the adults again. Claire saw it. She took Emma's hand before Emma could decide. Then she said, You do not have to make me feel better. Emma started crying again. So what am I supposed to do? Be 16. That broke Claire more than anything else had. Daniel looked away. I stepped onto the back porch and let them have the room. A few minutes later, Daniel joined me. He closed the door behind him. You think I should go home? No. You think I should leave? No. He looked irritated. Then, what do you think? I think you're finally asking the real question. What's that? Not whether Claire's secret is understandable. He waited. Whether she can stop managing the people she loves whenever she's afraid of what they might choose. Daniel looked through the glass at his wife and daughter, sitting together. And if she can't, then you'll know what you're deciding. He nodded slowly. Inside, Claire was saying something to Emma. Neither of us could hear it. That was all right. For the first time since Lucas's name appeared in the bank records, I did not feel the need to know every word. We had found the pattern beneath the secret. Now, we had to find out whether Claire could break it before the people she had been trying so hard to keep finally stopped trusting her to let them make their own choices. The next morning, Daniel was still in our guest room. That was unusual enough by itself. The last time he had slept under our roof without Claire was before Emma was born. He came into the kitchen around 7 wearing yesterday's jeans and one of my old Tennessee sweatshirts Maggie kept in the hall closet. You still own this? I own everything you abandoned here before 2005. Good retirement plan. He poured coffee. For a few minutes, neither of us mentioned Claire. Then he said, She texted me at 3 in the morning. You answer? No. What did she say? He showed me. I understand why you need space. I'm not going to ask Emma to carry messages between us. I'm not going to send Lucas money or make plans involving him without talking to you first. When you're ready, I'll answer whatever concerns you, but I won't give you private things Lucas told me that have nothing to do with our marriage. I read it twice. That sounds reasonable. Daniel put the phone down. That annoys me. Because? She's being reasonable now. I understood. Sometimes an apology makes you angrier because it proves the person knew what reasonable behavior looked like all along. Maggie came in. She and Daniel exchanged a careful good morning. He was not punishing her. He was not comfortable with her either. Both could exist. Daniel said, I want to see the messages. Maggie looked at him. All of them? No. That surprised me, he noticed. I thought about what you said yesterday. I say many excellent things. Don't ruin it. He sat at the table. I don't need Lucas's private history. I don't need to know what he said about his adoptive parents or his doctor or every time he was lonely. Good. I want every message where Claire talked about me, Emma, our money, or our marriage. That sounded fair. Have you asked her? Yes. What did she say? She'll show me. When? Tonight. He rubbed his forehead. Then she asked whether I'd let her read my notes from Susan. Your lawyer? Yes. What did you say? No. Good. He looked at me. That simple? Yes. Why do I get privacy with a lawyer but she doesn't get privacy with Lucas? She does. That's what she said. She gets privacy about things that belong to Lucas or to her alone. And the rest? If she used your name, your money, your daughter, or your marriage to build a story you didn't know existed, that part involves you. Daniel nodded slowly. I can live with that rule. Don't call it a rule. Why? Because your mother will find 12 exceptions by dinner. Maggie opened the refrigerator. Your father has been married 48 years and still thinks rules are how marriage works. Daniel smiled. Small, but real. At 10, I drove Maggie to the grocery store because her car was in for brakes. On the way, she said, "You're enjoying being the reasonable one." I'm devastated by the responsibility. I mean it. So do I. She looked out the window. I keep thinking about Claire at 22. Before the wedding? Yes. You told her to tell him. I did. And then you let yourself become part of the silence. Yes. No defense. That was new too. At a red light, she said, I think I understood her fear better than I understood Daniel's right to know. I looked at her. Why? Because I was a mother. That seems backward. It probably was, she thought. Daniel was my son. I knew him. Claire was about to join the family and was terrified she'd lose everything if she told the truth. So you protected the person you thought was more vulnerable. Yes. And forgot vulnerability doesn't create authority over somebody else's information. Maggie gave me a sideways look. You've been thinking too much. I haven't slept properly in 5 days. That explains the philosophy. She reached over and touched my arm. I'm sorry I kept it from you. I had heard her apologize before. This felt different. What exactly are you sorry for? She thought before answering. Making your choice for you too. That was the right answer. I nodded. Did not forgive 19 years in one car ride. Did not need to decide whether forgiveness was a single event. At 6 that evening, Claire came to our house. Emma stayed home. That had been Daniel's decision and Claire's agreement. No 16-year-old needed another seat at the adult table. Claire brought her laptop. She sat across from Daniel in my dining room while Maggie and I stayed in the den. Close enough if they needed us. Far enough that we were not spectators. They talked for nearly 2 hours, quietly. Once Daniel raised his voice. Once Claire did. Then nothing for almost 15 minutes. At 8:20, Daniel came into the den. Dad, I stood. He looked pale. You okay? No. What happened? I need you to read something. I followed him. Claire was crying. Her laptop remained open. Daniel turned it toward me. I asked her for only messages that mentioned me. Claire said, That's fair. I looked at the screen. An email from Claire to Lucas dated October 3rd, about 2 weeks after their first serious exchange. Most of it was ordinary. Work, Emma, Daniel. Then, Daniel knows there are things from before we met that are hard for me to talk about. He's always been patient with that. If I need time before bringing everybody together, he'll understand. I looked at Daniel. Did you know about Lucas then? No, Claire said. I didn't write that he knew about Lucas. Daniel turned toward her. You made it sound like he was included in things from before we met. I know. I continued reading. A November message after their first lunch. I told Daniel I may have some family matters to sort out. He said I should do what I need to do. Daniel tapped the table. I never had that conversation. Claire looked down. What conversation did you have? I asked. She answered. I told him I was distracted because of something with my mother's estate. Daniel stared at her. Joyce had been dead 4 years. There were still boxes. That isn't what you told Lucas. No. The next message was February. Lucas had apparently resisted taking another tuition payment. Claire wrote, Please don't feel guilty. Daniel and I are fortunate. We both believe helping family when you can matters more than letting money sit in an account. Daniel pushed away from the table. I believe that sentence. I know. You took something I actually believe and made it permission I never gave. Claire's face crumpled. Yes. That was worse than a simple lie in a strange way. She had not invented a cruel husband. She had invented a generous one. She borrowed Daniel's better qualities because they made her secret easier to explain. I kept reading. March. Lucas had asked again whether Claire's family knew about him. Claire answered, Daniel knows enough to understand why I'm taking this slowly. He isn't pushing me. Emma doesn't know yet. I want to handle one relationship at a time. Daniel pointed. That one. Claire nodded. That's when he began thinking I knew. Yes. You knew he thought that. Yes. And you let him. Yes. There was no defensive language left. I reached the April messages, after Emma found the emails, after the soccer weekend. One note from Lucas. I liked Emma a lot. I hope Daniel is really okay with this because I don't want to cause trouble in your house. Claire's reply, He'll be okay. He trusts my judgment about Emma, and he knows she can make up her own mind about people. Daniel stood. I understood why. That sentence used him twice, his trust, his parenting, both without his knowledge. Claire said, "I was scared Lucas would back away." Daniel turned. "So you used me to make him stay?" "No." "Then what?" She could not answer. He pointed toward the laptop. "You made me the husband who understood, the husband who agreed, the husband who trusted you. You gave that version of me to Lucas while the real me was sitting at home wondering why you were distracted." Claire covered her face. "I know." "Why?" she cried quietly. Daniel waited. So did I. Eventually she lowered her hands. "Because I was ashamed." "Of Lucas?" "No." Her answer was immediate. "Never him." "Then what?" "Of myself." Daniel said nothing. Claire looked at the old hospital photograph lying beside the laptop. I had spent 24 years telling myself I did the responsible thing. Then Lucas found me, and suddenly I wanted him to know I had a good life. What does that have to do with me knowing? Everything. Her voice shook. I wanted him to think I hadn't hidden him because I was ashamed. Daniel leaned against the chair. "But you were hiding him." "I know." "So you told him I knew?" "Yes." "Why does that fix anything?" "Because then I wasn't the woman secretly talking to the son she gave away." She looked at him. "I was a wife whose husband understood." That was the deeper truth. Claire had not only been afraid Daniel would leave, she had been afraid of what Lucas would think if he learned she had built an entire family that did not know he existed. So she created a gentler version. Daniel knew enough. Daniel understood. Daniel approved the help. Daniel was giving her time. All the patience she was afraid to ask from him directly, she assigned to him in private. "I wanted Lucas to see me as someone who had done okay," she said. Daniel's voice softened despite himself. "You did do okay. I know. You have a good career. I know. You raised Emma. I know. You didn't need to invent me." Claire shook her head. "I didn't think of it as inventing." "I know." He said it tiredly. "That's becoming the problem." Then Claire opened another folder on the laptop. "There's something else." Daniel's face hardened again. "How much else?" "Not another person." "What?" "I need you to know before you find it." She opened an email draft, not sent, dated 12 days earlier, addressed to Lucas. "I talked to the bank about what tuition and the rest of your program might cost next year. Don't worry about it yet. Once our refinance is finished, I may be able to help more than I originally thought." Daniel did not move. The refinance, the one that had caused the lender to request the statements, the one that had exposed Lucas in the first place. "What does that mean?" he asked. Claire swallowed. "I asked the lender what increasing the cash-out amount would do to the payment." "How much?" $25,000, Maggie whispered. "Claire, I didn't sign anything." Daniel stared at his wife. "Were you going to tell me?" "Yes." "When?" "Before closing." "That is not what I asked." Claire closed her eyes. "I don't know." The financial problem had just changed again. She had not taken $25,000. No loan had closed. No money had moved. But while Daniel thought they were refinancing their home to build a garage addition, Claire had quietly explored increasing the debt on that same home so she could help Lucas. And once again, she planned to arrive at the conversation after she had already designed what she believed was the safest answer. Daniel looked at the draft email, then at Claire. "I thought the $17,000 was the secret." "So did I," she whispered. He shook his head. "No." He closed the laptop. "The money isn't the secret." Claire looked at him. "The secret is that every time you're afraid somebody might say no, you try to get as close to yes as possible before you let them into the room." No one argued with him, and for the first time, Claire did not explain why. She simply sat there and understood that the question facing her marriage was no longer whether Daniel could forgive one hidden son or 11 hidden transfers. It was whether he could trust that the next major decision in their life would still belong to both of them, before Claire quietly made it easier for him to give the answer she needed. It was whether he could trust that the next major decision in their life would still belong to both of them, before Claire quietly made it easier for him to give the answer she needed. Daniel did not sleep at our house that night. He did not go home either. Around 10, he booked a room at a hotel near Cedar Bluff. Maggie tried to talk him out of paying for a hotel when our guest room was empty. He said, "I need one night where nobody in the building knows my entire life." That ended the discussion. Before leaving, he asked Claire to email him copies of the messages she had shown him. She agreed. Then he asked one more question. Are there any messages about me you skipped? Claire looked at the closed laptop. I don't think so. Daniel's face changed. Not anger, fatigue. Don't think. She nodded. I'll check. He left. Claire stayed another 20 minutes. She and Maggie talked quietly near the front door. I did not listen. When Claire finally left, Maggie found me in the kitchen wiping a counter that did not need wiping. You're angry? Yes. At Claire? Yes. At me? Yes. At Daniel? Some. She folded her arms. What did he do? He's deciding things fast. He went to a hotel. I know. That's not divorce. I know. You think he should come home. I think he should not make a permanent decision while he's this angry. Maggie stared at me, then said, Tom, I knew that tone. What? You're doing it. Doing what? Planning Daniel's correct reaction. I stopped. She continued. You spent the last week telling everybody else they have to let him choose. I am letting him choose. You're judging the speed. Because I know him. So did Claire. That landed. I set down the dish towel. Maggie came closer. You can advise him if he asks. You can tell him what you see. But if you decide the mature answer is staying married or separating or waiting 30 days, you're just building a nicer version of the same trap. I hated when she was right before bedtime. I didn't say he should stay married. No. You're arguing with something I didn't say. You were about to. I was wiping a counter for 8 minutes. I went to bed without winning. At 7:12 the next morning, Daniel called. You awake? I'm 70. Of course I'm awake. I got the rest of the emails. I sat up. Maggie opened one eye beside me. What rest? Claire searched every message with my name. His voice sounded different. Empty. Daniel? There's one from May. I waited. Can you meet me? Where? The Waffle House on Lovell. I was there 25 minutes later. Daniel sat in a corner booth with black coffee and his phone face down beside it. He looked like he had not slept. What did she write? He turned the phone over. It's an email from Lucas. I read. Lucas had written it 9 days after meeting Emma. It was short. He thanked Claire for introducing them. Then, Emma's great. I'm glad I met her, but I'm worried about Daniel. I don't want you risking your marriage because I showed up. If he doesn't want me around, I can step back. I've had a family my whole life. I don't need you to blow up yours to prove anything to me. I read the last sentence again. Lucas had been more careful with Daniel's marriage than Claire had. Scroll, Daniel said. Claire's reply was longer. At first, ordinary reassurance. She told Lucas he had done nothing wrong. She told him Daniel was a good man. She said she believed Daniel would eventually understand. Then I reached the paragraph Daniel wanted me to see. I already lost you once because other people decided what was best for me. I will not lose you again because someone else is uncomfortable. If Daniel ever makes me choose between my marriage and having you in my life, I know what I will choose. I stopped reading. Daniel looked through the restaurant window. I hadn't even been told he existed. No, she had already decided what I would make her choose. Yes, and what she'd choose when I did. I handed the phone back. That is different from what she said Tuesday. How? She said she was afraid you would make her choose. She was. This says she had already answered a question you hadn't asked. Daniel laughed once. That seems to be our family specialty. A waitress refilled my coffee. We waited until she left. Then Daniel said, Keep reading. There was another paragraph. I don't think it will come to that. Daniel loves me and loves Emma. Once he understands you aren't asking for anything except a place in my life, he'll come around. I just need to handle the order carefully. The order. Emma first. Financial help quietly. Lucas stable. Then Daniel. A sequence designed to make his eventual objection less possible. I put the phone down. Have you talked to Claire? No. Does she know you read this? Yes. How? She called at 6:30. And? She said she had forgotten that email. Do you believe her? I don't know. That answer was becoming healthier than certainty. She said she was emotional after Emma met him. Probably true. She said she was terrified Lucas would disappear. Also probably true. She said she didn't mean she'd literally leave me. What did she mean? That she wouldn't let me force her to cut contact. That is not an unreasonable boundary. Daniel looked at me. No, I continued. But there's a difference between saying, I won't abandon my son if my husband is uncomfortable, and deciding before your husband knows the son exists, that he may become the enemy. Daniel nodded. That's what hurts. Not the sentence about choosing Lucas. The role she had assigned Daniel before he entered the story. He was the possible obstacle, the person who might need to come around, a reaction to be managed. Not a husband who could be shocked, confused, generous, selfish, frightened, kind, or all of those in some imperfect order. She never trusted me with the ugly first reaction, he said. No. She only wanted the finished one. I thought about that. Maybe because she was never allowed one herself. Daniel looked at me. I continued. When she was 17, her parents decided adoption was responsible. They arranged everything before she had enough power to make another answer practical. I know. She may have learned that uncertainty is where people get hurt. So she eliminates it. Tries to. He looked at Claire's email. And hurts everybody while doing it. Yes. We ate breakfast without discussing divorce. That surprised me. Daniel talked about Emma instead. She had texted him at midnight. Nothing about Claire, just a picture of a ridiculous biology worksheet question with the caption, explain why this is worth 4 points. He had answered. That was good. At 9, Susan Keene called him. He stepped outside. When he returned, his face was calmer. What did she say? She asked whether I wanted to file anything. And? I said no. For now? For now, I nodded. He looked irritated. What? Nothing. You approve. I'm trying not to. Mom got to you. Your mother has been getting to me since 1978. Daniel almost smiled. Then he said, I'm going home tonight. That surprised me more. To stay? To talk? Different. Yes. He looked down at his hands. I'm not ready to sleep in the same room. That seems like information Claire can survive. I'm going to ask her for one thing. What? No more prepared outcomes. I waited. If she wants to stay married, she has to stop presenting me with decisions after she's already built the conditions around them. That is reasonable. And I have to tell her before I meet with Susan again. I raised an eyebrow. You changed your mind? Not because Claire gets to supervise my lawyer. Then why? Because hiding the meeting made me feel powerful for about 3 hours. He looked toward the parking lot. Then I sat in your truck until midnight because I was too scared to go home. I remembered the GPS history, 6:04, 8:15, 9:30, 11:52. The original mystery had looked like a location question. Why was my son's truck outside a lawyer's office? Now I understood that the 4 hours after the meeting mattered more than the 2 hours inside. Daniel had been doing his own version of what Claire had done, preparing, controlling information, trying to know how the story ended before inviting the other person into it. The difference was that Daniel had caught himself after one night. Claire had spent 19 years building the habit. That afternoon, I drove to Daniel's house because he asked me to bring his overnight bag. He was already inside. Emma's car was gone. Soccer practice. Claire sat on the living room couch. Daniel stood near the fireplace. I set the bag by the stairs. Need me? No, Daniel said. I should have left. Instead, I looked at Claire. Did you mean that email? Daniel's face tightened. He had not asked me to ask. There it was. My mistake again. I was inserting myself because I thought I could sharpen the question. Claire looked at Daniel. Did you ask him to come here for this? No. That made it worse. I raised one hand. My mistake. Daniel stared at me. I continued. You asked me to bring the bag. Yes. I'm leaving. For once, I actually did. I made it halfway down the driveway before Daniel followed. Dad. I turned. He looked angry. You keep doing that. I know. No. You keep saying you know after you do it. That sounded painfully familiar. I said nothing. I need you to stop solving this. I'm trying. You're bad at it. Yes. I'm serious. So am I. He looked toward the house. I don't know if I'm staying married. My stomach tightened. I wanted to tell him not to decide yet. I could feel the sentence forming. So I swallowed it. Daniel saw. What? Nothing. Say it. No. He stared at me, then understood. A little of the anger left his face. Thank you. I nodded. He went back inside. I drove home alone. That evening, Maggie and I ate without the television. At 8:40, Daniel texted, "I'm staying at the house, guest room. Emma knows we're having marriage problems, but none of this is hers to fix. Claire and I are starting counseling Friday. No decisions beyond that. I read it to Maggie." She nodded. "Good." I almost agreed, then corrected myself. "It's his choice." She smiled. "Very good." The lowest point did not look dramatic. No divorce papers, no screaming, no one thrown out. It looked like my son sleeping 20 feet from his wife in a room meant for visitors. It looked like Emma checking every sentence to see whether it contained an assignment. It looked like Claire realizing that explaining her fear did not automatically restore the trust her fear had damaged. And it looked like me, at 70, discovering that experience can become another form of control if you mistake seeing a pattern for owning somebody else's answer. By Friday, the question was no longer who had the strongest explanation. Claire had one, Daniel had one, Maggie had one, even I did. The question was whether any of us could stop using explanations to outrun consequences. Because Claire's deepest betrayal had not been that she once loved a child Daniel never knew about. It was that, before Daniel ever had the chance to meet that truth as himself, she had already imagined his resistance, borrowed his approval, planned around his objections, and privately decided what would happen if he failed to become the version of her husband she needed. Now there was no version left to manage. Daniel knew. Emma knew. Lucas knew Daniel had not known. I knew what Maggie had kept from me, and Claire was finally facing the one thing she had spent most of her life trying to avoid. A family full of people who had all the facts and were still free to choose what they did next. Freedom turned out to be less dramatic than anybody expected. On Friday afternoon, Daniel and Claire went to their first counseling appointment. Not because Daniel had decided to save the marriage. He was careful about that. When Maggie asked whether counseling meant they were staying together, he said, "It means we're going to one counseling appointment." That answer irritated her. I thought it showed improvement. Their counselor was a woman named Patricia Alvarez, who had worked with couples for 23 years. Daniel told me almost nothing about the first hour. I respected that. Then Saturday morning he came over with a yellow legal pad. "I need the truck." I looked at him. He smiled slightly. "For 1 hour." "Absolutely not." That got the laugh I wanted. "Where are you going?" "Johnson City." "That is longer than 1 hour. I'm meeting Lucas." "Your Explorer broken?" "No." "Claire tracking it?" "Yes." "And?" "She knows where I'm going." That was the point. Daniel held up the legal pad. "Patricia gave us homework. I already dislike her." "You'd like this." "What?" "We each make a timeline of every decision involving Lucas that affected somebody else." That sounded less like therapy than project management. Probably why Daniel agreed. He sat at my kitchen table. His timeline had dates down the left side. September, Lucas contacted Claire through Melissa. October, first transfer. November, first meeting. February, tuition payment. April, Emma discovered messages. April, Claire introduced Emma to Lucas. May, Claire wrote that email saying she would choose Lucas if Daniel objected. July, larger transfers. August, refinance discussion. Tuesday, Daniel confronted Claire. Thursday, lawyer. Then Daniel had added another column. Who knew? Most early entries said Claire, Lucas. Then Emma appeared in April. Daniel did not appear until the end. "I thought the exercise was going to make me angrier," he said. "Did it?" "At first." He pointed to October. Then Patricia asked Claire to make the same timeline. And? She had different dates. That caught me. Important ones? Yes. When did Claire say the first decision involving Lucas happened? Before Lucas contacted her. I frowned. How? Melissa called. September. Claire had said that. Daniel continued. Melissa told Claire a young man named Lucas Bennett had matched with her through the Ancestry site and believed he might be related to the Mercer family. Yes. Claire told Melissa not to give him her information. That we knew. Daniel nodded. What we didn't know is she called Mom that night. I looked toward the hallway. Maggie was upstairs. What did she ask? Whether Mom still thought I deserved to know. I leaned back. And your mother said? Yes. That surprised me less than it would have a week earlier. Daniel looked at his notes. Mom told Claire she had two choices. Tell me Lucas existed before answering him, or answer him, and tell me immediately afterward. That sounds sensible. Claire didn't either. No. Daniel tapped the page. Patricia asked why. What did she say? That she wanted one conversation with Lucas that belonged only to her. I thought about that. Also understandable. I know. He sounded tired. That's what makes this difficult. People expect betrayal to become easier when the betrayer has understandable reasons. Usually it becomes harder. It removes the comfort of contempt. Daniel continued. Then Patricia asked Claire when that one private conversation became 9 months. What did she say? She didn't know. Believe her? Yes. He looked at the timeline. That may be the first answer I believe completely. A decision rarely announces when it becomes a pattern. You make one exception, then protect the exception, then adjust reality around the protection. Eventually, the thing you told yourself was temporary has its own calendar. Daniel folded the pad. So I'm going to Lucas. Why? To correct something. What? Me. I understood. Lucas still carried a false version of Daniel even after their diner meeting. He knew now that Daniel had not known about him, but he still had years of explanations Claire had built using Daniel's name. Daniel wanted the record cleaned up, not as evidence, not to embarrass Claire, because if they were going to move forward at all, nobody else was going to keep living inside a version of Daniel created without his permission. Claire coming? No. Her choice? Yes. Yours? Also yes. Good. He took his own vehicle. I noticed. That afternoon Claire came by while Daniel was gone. She asked for Maggie. I stayed in the garage. Not because I had no curiosity, because Daniel had finally made me aware of how often I disguised curiosity as usefulness. I was tightening a hinge on an old cabinet when Maggie came out 20 minutes later. She wants to talk to you. That sounds dangerous. Probably. Claire sat at our kitchen table. No laptop, no documents. Daniel told me what he's doing, she said. Talking to Lucas. Yes. You okay with it? No. Honest. Why? I'm afraid Lucas will think everything I told him was fake. Was it? No. Then what are you afraid of? That he'll decide I manipulated him too. I sat across from her. Did you? She looked down. Not intentionally. That answer would not help her. She knew it. I told him Daniel approved things he didn't approve, she said. Yes. I told him Emma could handle meeting him before I knew whether she could. Yes. I kept offering money even when Lucas said he felt guilty. Yes, she looked at me. I wanted to make it easier for him to stay. There it was. The pattern applied to Lucas too. Claire had been so afraid of losing him again that she made herself useful. Money, tuition, car repairs, a sister who already accepted him, a husband who supposedly understood. She did not demand Lucas love her. She built a world where leaving her became harder. That was subtler, and probably more painful for Claire to see. What did Patricia say? I asked. Claire smiled weakly. That I confuse making people safe with making their choices safe for me. I considered that. I do like her. Claire almost laughed. Then she said, I canceled the refinance. I looked at her. Daniel agreed. We both did. What about the garage? We don't need a $40,000 garage enough to borrow against the house while we're arguing about money. Reasonable. And Lucas? I told him yesterday there won't be more money for now. How'd he take it? He said okay. That's all. He asked if I was angry. Why would you be? Because I think he expected me to make it emotional. That hurt her, I could tell. He said he'd figure out next semester. Can he? Yes. Then maybe let him. She nodded. I'm trying. Daniel returned around 5. Claire was still there. He did not seem surprised. Maybe they had coordinated it. Maybe that was progress too. He sat across from her. How was Lucas? She asked. Fine. What did he say? Daniel looked toward me and Maggie, then back at Claire. He asked me something I think you should hear from him. Claire stiffened. He wants to come here. Tomorrow. To your parents' house? I said. Why is everything happening at my kitchen table? Maggie answered. Because we have the biggest table. Apparently that's settled venue law. Lucas arrived Sunday at noon. No dramatic entrance, no hospital photograph, no stack of evidence. He brought a pie from a bakery in Johnson City because Karen Bennett had apparently raised him to believe you did not arrive empty-handed at somebody's home. Maggie liked him immediately for that. Emma came with Claire and Daniel. That mattered more. Same car. Nobody pretended the marriage was repaired. They simply arrived together. We ate first. Daniel insisted. He said if the conversation became terrible, at least no one would have to do it hungry. Lucas talked about school. Emma argued with him about whether soccer required more endurance than basketball. Claire mostly listened. Then after the plates were cleared, Daniel placed the yellow legal pad on the table. "No ambush," he said. "I just want everybody to hear the same version." Claire nodded. Emma looked nervous. Lucas did too. Daniel turned to him. "Yesterday you asked whether the money came from me." Lucas nodded. "It came from a joint account. I understand. I didn't approve it. I understand that now." Daniel continued. "Claire also told you things about what I knew." Lucas looked at Claire. She said quietly, "Let him finish." Daniel went through them. He had not known about Lucas. He had not given Claire permission to delay telling him. He had not approved the transfers. He had not told Claire to introduce Emma first. He had not promised to come around. Then Daniel did something I respected. He added what was true. "I do believe helping family matters." Lucas looked at him. "I do think Emma can make up her own mind about people." Emma nodded. "And I am glad Claire found you." Claire's face changed. Daniel continued. "I'm angry about how she handled it. I'm not angry that you exist." Lucas looked down for several seconds. Then he said, "Okay." No speech, just okay. Then he looked at Claire. "Can I ask something?" "Yes." "If Daniel had told you not to see me, what would you have done?" Claire looked at her husband. This was the question she had answered privately months earlier. Now everyone knew that answer. She could repeat it, or change it because Daniel was sitting there. She took her time. "I would have told him I couldn't agree to that." Daniel nodded. Claire continued. "But I should have let him actually say what he felt before deciding he would ask." Lucas looked at her. "And the money? I shouldn't have given you money from our account without Daniel knowing." He swallowed. "Would you have helped me if it was only your money?" "Yes." "That isn't what I asked." Claire stopped. Lucas had learned from this family quickly. He tried again. "If I'd known Daniel didn't know, I wouldn't have taken it." Claire's eyes filled. "I know." "No, you didn't." The table went still. Not because he was cruel, because it was the first time Lucas challenged her directly. "You thought knowing would make me uncomfortable," he said. "Yes." "So you decided I didn't need to know either." Claire looked down. There it was. The truth had finally reached everyone affected by it. Daniel was not the only person Claire had managed. Emma was not the only one. Lucas had been managed too. Not for money, not for control in the usual sense. Because Claire loved him and was terrified that if every person had complete information, one of them might choose to leave. Lucas continued. "You told me I didn't owe you a relationship. I meant that. I believe you." He looked at her. "But then you kept making it easier for me to stay without telling me what it cost everyone else." Claire cried quietly. "Yes." Emma reached for her hand, then paused. I watched Claire notice. This time she did not grab it. She waited. Emma chose to take her mother's hand anyway. That small movement mattered more than any apology. Daniel closed the yellow pad. "No more timelines." Claire looked at him. "What happens now?" He breathed out. "I don't know." A week earlier, that answer would have frightened her. I saw the fear arrive, then something else. Restraint. She nodded. "Okay." Daniel looked almost surprised. No promise, no prepared plan, no deadline forcing the marriage toward reconciliation. Just uncertainty allowed to exist without somebody secretly arranging the outcome around it. When Lucas left, Claire walked him to his car. Daniel stayed in the kitchen with Emma. Maggie started dishes. I stood by the window. For the first time since my truck sat outside that lawyer's office until midnight, nobody in the family was trying to find the safest route around somebody else's reaction. The truth was out. Not polished, not comfortable, but shared. And whatever came next would finally have to be chosen in daylight. And whatever came next would finally have to be chosen in daylight. Daniel's first choice was smaller than divorce. He went home, not back to the bedroom, back to the house. There was a difference. For the next 2 weeks, he slept in the guest room. Claire stayed in their bedroom. They ate dinner with Emma when schedules allowed, went to counseling on Fridays, and stopped using her as a messenger. That last part required more discipline than any of them expected. The first Tuesday, Claire asked Emma whether Daniel wanted anything from the grocery store. Emma stared at her. "Ask Dad." Claire caught herself. You're right. She texted him from 10 feet away. Emma later told me it was the strangest family progress she had ever witnessed. Daniel also had work to do. Patricia, the counselor, apparently did not believe being the injured spouse excused him from examining his own habits. He hated that. I liked her more every week. Daniel had spent years handling conflict by preparing before he spoke. Research the numbers, know the options, anticipate objections, then enter the conversation with what he considered the reasonable solution already formed. Not as dramatically as Claire had done, not with 19-year secrets, but Patricia pointed out that he and Claire had built complementary habits. Claire managed other people's reactions because she feared losing them. Daniel managed decisions because he feared being unprepared. When fear entered the room, both of them tried to reduce uncertainty before talking. Different methods, same temptation, control first, conversation second. On the third Friday, Daniel came by after counseling. He stood in my garage while I adjusted a shelf that had been level before I touched it. Patricia asked why I went to Susan before confronting Claire a second time. You had already confronted her. I know. She wouldn't explain Lucas. I know. So going to a lawyer was reasonable. That's what I said. And? She agreed. I stopped turning the screwdriver. That must have been disappointing. Daniel ignored me. She said reasonable doesn't mean neutral. I waited. She asked what I wanted from the meeting. Information. That's what I told her. What else? He looked toward the driveway. Permission? For divorce? For being angry enough to consider it? That was more honest. I wanted a professional to tell me I wasn't overreacting. Did Susan? No. Good lawyer. Daniel leaned against the workbench. Then Patricia asked why I lied about where I was going. You didn't want Claire tracking you. I know. What'd you say? That I didn't trust her. True. She said I also didn't trust myself. That one caught me, Daniel continued. If I'd taken my own car, Claire might have asked where I was. Then I would have had to either tell her before the appointment or lie directly. So you built a route around the question? Yes. He looked at me. Sound familiar? Unfortunately. I hate this family. No, you don't. Currently negotiable. A week later, Claire did something more difficult. She called her brother. Eric Mercer lived outside Columbus. 40 years old, married, 2 boys. As far as he knew, he had one sibling, Claire. She had never told him about Lucas. Her parents had not either. Emma asked whether Claire was going to wait until she knew how Eric might react. Claire said no, then spent 2 days drafting what she wanted to say. Daniel watched her delete the draft. That mattered. On Sunday afternoon, she called Eric from their kitchen. Daniel was there because Claire asked him to be. Not to speak for her, just to stay. Emma was at our house with Maggie. I was supposed to be watching a football game. Instead, I watched Emma stare at her phone every 30 seconds. Your mother said she'll call when she's done. I know. Then looking at the screen won't improve Ohio's cellular service. She gave me the exact expression her father had used at 16. 45 minutes passed, then an hour. At 73 minutes, Emma's phone rang. She answered. Mom? Listened. Okay. Another pause. Okay. Then she started crying. Maggie sat beside her. I stayed where I was. When Emma hung up, she wiped her face. Uncle Eric wants to meet Lucas. That sounds good, Maggie said. Emma nodded. But he's mad. At your mother? At Grandma Joyce, Grandpa Mercer, Mom, everybody. Reasonable. What did Claire do? I asked. Emma looked at me. Nothing. What does that mean? She let him be mad. There it was. A week earlier, Claire would have explained, prepared context, defended her 17-year-old self, protected her parents, protected Lucas, found the exact information most likely to lead Eric toward the reaction she hoped for. This time, she told him, then let his first answer be unfinished. Later, Daniel told me the conversation had gone badly before it went better. Eric thought Claire was joking. Then he thought Lucas might be somebody trying to scam her. Then Claire sent the hospital photograph. Eric stopped talking for almost a minute. After that came questions. Why had their parents hidden it from him? Why had Claire? Why did Emma know before he did? Why had no one told him after their mother died? Claire answered each one without trying to rearrange the order. Finally, Eric said, I don't know what to do with this. Claire said, You don't have to know today. Daniel told me that was the moment he noticed her change. Not because she suddenly became trustworthy, because she resisted solving Eric's reaction for him. 3 weeks after the family meeting with Lucas, Daniel went back